Ostracized over my inheritance, I sought peace but faced humiliation. Furious, I cut off my sister's rent, exposing my parents' manipulation. I arrived for a family meal, but they remarked, "We weren't expecting you. Go away, loser." I replied, "Okay. But from now on, you'll be paying my sister's rent." They begged, but it was too late. I did not want to go at first. Why would I, given what had happened in the previous years? But something inside me didn't want to hold the hatred forever. My father was turning 57, and while I wasn't their favorite person, I figured I could be the larger man and at least show up. Things had gotten awful ever since I acquired my grandfather's estate. Grandpa and I were close. I spent a lot of time with him while growing up. He was often telling me stories about his early troubles, how he had to fight for all he has. I believe he saw something of himself in me, which is why he left me a large sum of money when he died. This decision did not sit well with either my parents or my sister Olivia. They were outraged that Grandpa had not left them anything, as if it were my fault or something. I attempted to explain that I had nothing to do with it, but they would not listen. After that, nothing remained the same. They treated me as an alien, as if I had stolen from them. They were frigid at family gatherings. Sometimes they didn't even invite me. I maintained my distance. But this time, I decided to try and make things better. I purchased a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey, the costly variety he only drank on exceptional occasions. I even bought him a box of gourmet cigars. Maybe I was stupid to believe that a few nice gifts would change everything. But I had to try. When I arrived at her place, Olivia answered the door. She was the one person who had not fully shut me off. We weren't very tight, but we kept in touch here and there. "Hey, Jeffrey," she said, slightly astonished. "I didn't know you were coming." "Yeah," I responded. "I thought I'd show up for Dad's birthday." She paused for a moment before shrugging and letting me in. As I came into the living room, I noticed a group of family sitting talking and laughing. For a little while, everything seemed normal. But then I saw my parents. My mother's face became paler, and my father's attitude stiffened. The room became quiet. "You," my father growled. "What are you doing here?" I tried to remain cool. "I came to wish you a happy birthday. I brought some presents." He scoffed. "We didn't invite you." My mom shook her head. "Why are you even here? You always bring trouble. Just leave." I could feel my patience running out. I'd come here to make peace. And this was the reaction I received? I glanced around at the other family. They were uncomfortable, as if they were seeing something they weren't allowed to. "Look," I remarked, maintaining an even tone. "I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to celebrate with you." My father snorted. "Celebrate? You're nothing but a loser. You think a few gifts will make up for everything?" That struck a nerve. All those years of being treated as dirt, as if I didn't belong, came flooding back. I clenched my jaw, hoping to keep it together. But then my father pushed it further. "Get out, Jeffrey," he instructed. "We don't want you here." And that was all? Something inside of me cracked. "Fine," I replied, my voice frigid. "I'll go. But guess what? I've been paying Olivia's rent all this time because you couldn't be bothered to help her. Not anymore. That's on you now." Their expressions froze. It was as if they hadn't expected me to advocate for myself. My mother suddenly hurried forward. "Wait, Jeffrey." "No," I interrupted. "I'm done. You don't want me here? Fine. But you'll regret this." I turned and walked out, leaving the home completely silent. As I approached my car, I could hear them cry from the front door, imploring me to stop. But I did not glance back. I got in and sped away, fury rising in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to be their punching bag longer. The following morning, my phone burst. Olivia had called me 6 times, left 3 voicemails, and sent numerous texts. I ignored her at first. I needed some distance to clear my mind after what occurred last night. But curiosity got the best of me, so I listened to one of the voicemails. "Jeffrey, it's Olivia. What the hell is going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out, saying you cut me off. They're blaming me for everything. Call me back." I grumbled and threw my phone onto the bed. Of course, they blamed her. When things went wrong, they were usually the first to blame others. I still felt horrible for Olivia. It wasn't actually her fault. I had been assisting her with her rent for the past 2 years because our parents refused to aid her when she was in need. But I was not going to let them guilt me into continuing, especially after how they treated me. Olivia arrived at my apartment approximately an hour later. She did not even knock. She simply barged in. "Jeffrey, what the hell have you been doing?" she asked. Good to see you too, I murmured, crossing my arms. I'm serious, she snapped. Dad called all the relatives and told them you threw a tantrum at the party. Now half the family is pissed at me because they think I'm the reason you stopped paying my rent. I raised an eyebrow. Wait, what? He told them that? Yeah, she replied, throwing up her hands. They say I must have sided with you against them or something. Uncle Mark called me this morning and asked if I was plotting with you. It's crazy. This was new. I had not anticipated the rest of the family to become involved so quickly. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, trying to take everything in. Well, Olivia, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle, I told her. But I'm done being their scapegoat. They've treated me like crap ever since Grandpa's inheritance. They didn't even want me there last night. I'm not going to keep playing nice when all they do is insult me. She crossed her arms and stared at me. They could have at least talked to me first, you know. I need that money. I know, I admitted, softening my tone. But maybe it's time for them to take some responsibility. They're your parents too. Why should I be the one to keep you afloat while they sit on their hands? Olivia did not respond soon away. I could tell she was split. On the one hand, she knew I was correct. On the other hand, she was torn between her allegiance to me and the pressure from our parents. Eventually, she shook her head. This is going to get ugly, she grumbled. I'm ready for it, I said. And things did get ugly. Faster than I thought. By the afternoon, word had spread among the wider family. My cousin Megan, who always liked to play the role of mediator, called me. Hey, Jeffrey, she said cautiously. I heard about the fight last night. What's going on? I gave her the outline, omitting some of the harsher aspects. Megan listened carefully and sighed. You know they say you ruined the party, right? But honestly, a lot of people are on your side. Uncle Rob thinks your dad and mom crossed the line. And Aunt Lisa told them off for the way they treated you. This was surprising. Aunt Lisa normally avoided family turmoil, so her involvement must have irritated her greatly. Wow, I said. Didn't see that coming? Yeah, Megan replied. But Olivia called me earlier, and she's pissed. I think she feels like you threw her under the bus. I massaged my temples. This was turning into a full-fledged family feud. A part of me felt bad. However, another part of me felt relieved. For once, I wasn't the only one feeling their fury. Maybe they'll finally realize how toxic our parents can be. Later that night, Olivia sent me a lengthy text message. She accused me of being selfish and leaving her when she needed me the most. It stung. But I knew she was just acting out under pressure. I did not respond. 2 days later, things erupted again. My father showed up at my workplace. I worked at a downtown marketing business and was astonished to find him standing in the entrance. He wasn't even attempting to mask his rage. We need to talk, he stated bluntly. I'm working, I said, my voice calm. You can call me later. No, he replied. We're doing this now. I sighed and let him outside. He didn't spend any time lying to me. You embarrassed this family, he remarked. Do you realize how many people are turning against us because of your stunt? You think you're better than us now, don't you? Better than you? No, I replied. But I'm not going to let you treat me like dirt anymore. I came to your birthday out of respect, and you threw it back in my face. His eyes narrowed. You think you're entitled because of Grandpa's money? Without him, you'd have nothing. That's rich, I replied. You're the one who's bitter about not getting a share. This isn't about respect or family, it's about control. He did not answer immediately, but I could see the rage in his eyes. Finally, he added, You're going to regret this, Jeffrey. No, I replied firmly. You are. He stormed away without saying another thing. As I watched him leave, I understood this wasn't over. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally standing firm. A few days later, I learned of the impact from other relatives. Aunt Lisa called to complain about how my father had gone around attempting to turn the entire family against me. Apparently, he told everyone that I had betrayed the family and cut off Olivia as punishment. But, to my astonishment, some relatives did not believe the narrative. Uncle Rob had plainly told my father, You treated Jeffrey like garbage, didn't you expect consequences? Lisa stated that several others were also beginning to see through the act. They remembered how distant my parents had gotten since the inheritance incident. Some of them were now silently supporting me. However, not everyone was supportive. Olivia had gone all in on our parents, and she wasn't holding back. She posted a passive-aggressive rant on Facebook, which everyone knew was directed at me. Family is supposed to be about support, not conditions. Some people think they can just walk away when it's inconvenient for them. Must be nice to live with no responsibilities. Some of us aren't so lucky. It required every ounce of willpower not to shoot back. My phone was buzzing with messages from cousins asking what was going on. The drama was growing like wildfire, and I was caught in the midst. Olivia returned to my house later in the evening. This time, she appeared fatigued rather than angry. She didn't even bother with greetings. "Can we talk?" she inquired. I nodded and invited her in. She sank down into the couch and moaned. "This whole thing is a mess, Jeffrey. I have people calling me a traitor, others saying I'm too dependent on you. I can't win. What am I supposed to do?" "Olivia, I understand," I replied. "But this isn't just about the rent. It's about the way they've treated me all these years. I came to Dad's party to make peace, and they humiliated me in front of everyone. You think I'm just going to roll over and take it?" She gazed down at her hands. "I know they were wrong," she said. "But they're still our parents. I don't want to be in the middle of this fight." I could tell she was straining, caught between her allegiance to them and the comfort I had provided. I decided to be honest. "Look, Olivia, I never wanted to make you choose sides. But I'm not going to let them walk all over me anymore. I've supported you because I care, not because I owe them anything. If they want to be responsible for you, let them." Her eyes were filled with frustration. "You don't get it," she retorted. "They won't help me. They never have. Without your support, I'm screwed." For a brief minute, I felt guilty. But then I remembered the years of insults. How they had regarded me like an outcast. I was not going to give up my mental health for those who did not appreciate me. "I'm sorry, Olivia," I whispered quietly. "But I can't do this anymore." She stood and shook her head. "Fine. But don't come crying to me when this all backfires." She went without saying anything else. The following day, events took an unexpected turn. Uncle Rob called to ask if I could meet him for coffee. I agreed, curious to know what he wanted. When I arrived, he quickly got to the point. "Look, Jeffrey, I know things have been tough with your parents, but I want you to know that you're not alone. A lot of us have seen the way they treated you. It's not right." "Thank you, Rob," I replied, drinking my coffee. "But I'm not sure what good it does." "They're not going to change." "Maybe not," he acknowledged. "But I think it's time we stop letting them control the narrative. You don't have to fight this fight alone." He went on to say that other relatives were preparing to confront my parents about their behavior. I had not expected this. Most of them normally avoided family conflict, but this time they were taking a stand. That night, Aunt Lisa called me. "We just had a meeting with your parents," she stated. "It got heated. We told them they needed to apologize to you and start treating you with respect. Of course, your dad was stubborn as hell, but I think we got through to your mom a little." I was stunned. For years, I felt lonely, as if I were the only one who recognized how toxic my parents could be. The family was starting to push back against their actions. Still, I wasn't waiting for an apology. People, including my father, did not change overnight. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, Olivia sent me a message. It was short and mysterious. "We need to talk. Something's happened." Olivia's message made me nervous. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I texted her back. "What's going on?" Her reply was immediate. "Come to Mom and Dad's. It's serious." Despite my better judgment, I drove over. I knew I was in an enemy country, but if something was truly wrong, I decided I should at least listen to her. When I arrived, Olivia met me at the door. She had a solemn expression on her face, as if she were bracing herself for something heavy. "They're in the living room," she replied softly. I followed her inside and found my parents sitting stiffly on the couch. They both appeared tight, but there was also a hint of something strange. My father motioned for me to sit down, but I remained standing. "All right," I replied, crossing my arms. "What's this about?" My mother sighed heavily. "We didn't want to tell you this way, but Olivia's in trouble. She's behind on her rent again," my father explained. "We just found out that she might be evicted." I looked at Olivia. She looked aside, biting her lip. "We can't let that happen," my father added. "She needs your help, Jeffrey, just until she gets back on her feet." I stared at them for a time, allowing the words to sink in. Something did not feel right. "How did you just find out about this?" I requested an explanation. "We got a call from her landlord," my mother stated hurriedly. "Too quick." Olivia shifted uneasily and avoided eye contact. My instincts kicked in. She had lied to me previously, and the whole situation reeked of manipulation. "So let me get this straight," I said carefully. You're telling me that her landlord called you instead of her. And this is the first you're hearing about it? My father's face tightened. Look, Jeffrey, this isn't the time to question details. Olivia needs help. I turned to face Olivia. Is this true? Are you behind on the rent? She hesitated before shaking her head. Number, I'm not behind. I felt my jaw clench. Then why are you all playing this game? Olivia grimaced. They thought if you thought it was serious enough, you'd help again. That was it? I snapped. Are you kidding me? You dragged me here with a fake emergency just to manipulate me into giving you more money? I turned to my parents. What is wrong with you people? You couldn't just ask me like normal people. Jeffrey, don't overreact, my mother said, her tone defensive. We were trying to protect Olivia. You're the one who cut her off. No, I snapped back. I cut you off. Olivia is a grown woman, and if she's in trouble, it's between her and me. But instead of coming to me honestly, you chose to lie. And you wonder why I want nothing to do with you. I turned to face Olivia. You went along with this? She seemed embarrassed. They pressured me. I didn't know what else to do. Well, congratulations, I replied bitterly. You all just made things 10 times worse. I stormed out. But I wasn't finished. My rage only escalated on the way home. I'd put up with their manipulation for years, but this was the final straw. Did they want to play games? Fine, I was going to set the record straight. When I arrived home, I began phoning and messaging the family who had been in contact with me. I told them everything, how my parents had lied about Olivia being in danger, how they had tried to guilt me into assisting after humiliating me at the party, and how they had turned the entire situation into a circus. The answer was quick and nasty. Uncle Rob contacted me first. You're telling me they made that whole story up? Jesus Christ. That's low, even for them. Aunt Lisa became very furious. I'm done with them, she said. They've played the victim card for too long. They're toxic, and they've been dragging this family into their mess for years. Word spread immediately. Within a day, the majority of the family understood the truth. The tide had completely changed. Relatives who had been on the fence began to cut off communication with my parents and Olivia. Nobody wants to deal with their deception and manipulation anymore. Olivia texted me and begged me to stop. Please, Jeffrey, you're losing everyone. They say it's your fault. My fault? I said. You brought this on yourself. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely supported. The family finally realized what I had been struggling with all along. My parents and Olivia attempted damage management, but it was too late. Nobody bought their justifications anymore. It was bizarre. For so long, I'd felt like the black sheep. But suddenly I was no longer an outcast. My parents were. Quite frankly, it seemed like justice. A week later, the aftermath was complete. My parents attempted to rally support from the rest of the family. However, their expectations had not been met. Megan told me that they had even sought out some of their more distant relatives, whom they hadn't spoken to in years, in an attempt to elicit sympathy. They called Aunt Marie, Megan remarked, laughing as she told me. You know, the one who never puts up with anybody's nonsense. Apparently, my father told her a sob story about how I turned everyone against them. He replied, maybe if you weren't such a control freak, your family wouldn't hate you. Then she hung up with him. Hearing that was more satisfying than I want to admit. But the big shock came when I discovered they were attempting to seek assistance from Uncle Peter, the wealthy individual who resided out of state. Peter had always been rather indifferent about family problems, but he was not ignorant. He had seen through my parents' games years before. I later learned that when they phoned him, he did not hold back. Peter told them straight out, Megan explained. Don't call me again. I'm not wasting my time with your theatrics. It was horrible. Every lifeline they attempted to clutch crumbled into dust. The people they formerly ruled had had enough. By the end of the week, my parents were almost completely separated. Olivia attempted to contact a few cousins, but none of them were interested in getting involved anymore. The entire family had cut her off. They're done, Rob informed me. No one wants to deal with their drama. It's just them now, Mom, Dad, and Olivia in their little kingdom of misery. I nearly felt bad for Olivia. Almost. She had decided to side with them and support their lies. Now she was stranded on their sinking ship. A few days later, my father contacted me. I pondered ignoring it, but ultimately chose to respond. I was curious to hear what he would say. Jeffrey, he said after a pause. We need to talk. Do we? I said, my tone icy. We made some mistakes, he said hesitantly. But you've made things worse by turning everyone against us. Don't you think it's time to end this feud? I laughed bitterly. You think this is my fault? You brought this on yourself. You lied to me. You humiliated me in front of my family. Now you're facing the consequences, and you want me to fix it for you. Jeffrey, please. We're still family. Funny, I said. You didn't care about your family when you called me a loser in front of everyone. Now that you have no one left, you want my help? I'm done. He tried to argue, but I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to him. It was the last time I spoke with any of them. I later learned through the grapevine that they were fighting to maintain appearances. With their family ties cut, they had no one to rely on. Olivia, who had previously relied on my support, was now discovering the hard way that our parents had no intention of assisting her. As for me, I felt free. For the first time in years, I was not burdened by their toxicity. I had my life back, and the support of loved ones who genuinely cared about me. My parents and Olivia were left in their self-created realm. There is no one to blame but each other. And honestly, I was fine with that. My mother-in-law and sister called me a freeloader while I secretly paid their bills. They threw me and my son out. They'll regret it. My life was rather straightforward until Jake came around. I worked as a fitness trainer at a neighborhood gym, where I helped others get into shape. It kept me busy enough not to think about the absence of drama in my personal life. Everything changed the day Jake stepped into my gym. Hey, I'm looking to switch up my routine. Got any killer moves to start with? He inquired, his tone light but his stare serious. I gave him a once-over. He wasn't your typical rookie, unsure which machine to try first. No, he appeared to know his way around a gym but was looking for something more. Sure, I said, directing him to a set of weights. Let's see what you've got. The initial session turned into a week. Then a month. Our casual conversations became longer and more personal. Jake owned a modest family restaurant known for its authentic Italian cuisine. It's all about the sauce, he'd explain. And nobody makes it like my mom. He spoke about his mother with admiration and frustration, hinting at strong family ties. He surprised me one afternoon as we finished a particularly strenuous workout. Listen, Emily, I've been thinking, how about dinner at my place? You can meet my mom and try that sauce I keep bragging about. I paused, more out of surprise than disinterest. Yeah, why not? I'm curious if it's as good as you claim. Dinner was cozy. The food was fantastic, and the company was surprisingly comfortable. His mother, Anna, smiled warmly and laughed heartily, but her eyes seemed to size me up with each glance. Sophia, his younger sister, also stopped by. Her presence was more prickly, her remarks crisp and rapid. So, Emily, Sophia began, a sneer flashing on her lips as she examined the muscles I had worked so hard to develop. Jake tells us you're quite the fitness guru. Ever deal with hopeless cases, or do you just make the fit fitter? I chuckled and took her jab in stride. I believe everyone has potential. It's all about finding the right motivation. Jake became a continuous presence in my life. He consistently arrived at the gym at the same time and always found an excuse to talk a bit longer. You know, I never believed in fate or any of that stuff, he admitted one evening as we closed the gym together. But meeting you, maybe I was wrong. His statements were a combination of gruff charm and clumsy earnestness. It was refreshing. Despite the niggling voice in my head telling me to take it slowly, I found myself falling for him, hard and quick, like a rookie carrying too much weight without a spotter. One frigid evening, as we went to our cars, he came to a halt and turned to face me, his demeanor solemn. Emily, I'm not good at this fancy talking, and I don't have a smooth line to throw your way, but I like you, a lot. What do you say we make this official? It was abrupt and honest. No games. There will be no delaying the inevitable. That was Jake, straightforward and all in. I grinned as my heart pounded in my chest. I say yes. Let's see where this goes. And with that, I was no longer merely a fitness trainer at the neighborhood gym. I was Jake's girlfriend, and eventually, his wife. Moving into Jake's mother's house shortly after we married was not exactly what I had envisioned for our happily ever after. Jake explained that it was essential to him because of his familial links. But living with his mother, Anna, and sister, Sophia, was difficult from the beginning. They did not hide their unhappiness with my entering the family, and things became more tense by the day. The house was usually busy, yet I somehow ended up with more than my fair share of responsibilities. After a long day at the gym, I'd go home to an endless list of responsibilities. The old washing machine was a nightmare, It broke down so frequently that I half joked it was personal against me. Nobody else seemed to notice or care, particularly Anna and Sophia. I recall one evening after dinner, I was attempting to fix that dreaded machine when I overheard them conversing in the kitchen. "She doesn't even know what she's doing," Sophia said, laughing without lowering her voice. "Watch, she'll flood the basement next." Their laughter rang down the corridor, wounding more than I cared to confess. I bit my tongue and concentrated on the task at hand. It was not just the washing machine. It was everything. From cooking to cleaning, my efforts were simply another source of fun for them. Cooking was the worst. Italian cooking was revered in this household, and my attempts were deemed blasphemous. I tried to follow Anna's recipes exactly, but nothing seemed to work. Sophia lurked in the doorway one night while I was struggling with a seemingly simple spaghetti recipe. "Is that supposed to look like that?" she inquired, a sneer crossing her lips. "It's nothing like Mom's." I gritted my teeth and stirred the sauce, which wouldn't thicken. "Well, I'm trying my best here." Sophia snorted. "Maybe your best isn't good enough. Did you ever think of that?" I wanted to respond, to defend myself. But what was the point? Everything would remain the same. Jake appeared to shrink slightly whenever his sister or mother chastised me. He never stood up for me. His quiet was as audible as their laughter. "Hey, Emily, just leave it," Jake said quietly later, attempting to avoid confrontation. "It's not worth it." Dinner time was a hassle. I had arranged the dishes on the table in the hopes of having a tranquil supper, but it seemed like I was sitting in a lion's den. "You know, in Italy, they'd probably ban you from the kitchen for this," Anna joked as she tried my food, and the others laughed along. "Yeah, maybe stick to what you know, gym stuff," Sophia would say, distributing the salt as if it were a peace gift I did not deserve. I'd nod, grin, and swallow the hurt, my irritation simmering like the sauce that never worked out. Living with Jake's family made each day feel like a war I was unprepared for. As my pregnancy progressed, the housework, which already felt like it was all on me, became increasingly stressful. Instead of receiving assistance or sympathy from Anna and Sophia, I sensed their hostility grow worse. One afternoon, I attempted to sweep the living room while moving slower than normal due to my increasing tummy. Anna strolled in, regarded me for a bit, and then gave out a sigh of displeasure. "Emily, you missed a spot over there, and look at how slow you're moving. This house is going to fall apart at this rate," she observed, pointing to a corner I hadn't yet arrived at. I straightened up, feeling a tightness in my back. "I'm doing the best I can, Anna. It's a bit harder with the baby." She scoffed, shaking her head. "In my time, we didn't let a little thing like pregnancy slow us down. You need to toughen up." The lack of sympathy hurt, and I bit my tongue to avoid snapping back. Sophia fared no better. Later that day, as I was folding laundry, she entered the room and began flipping through the clothing I had just carefully put. "You do know these aren't folded right, don't you? They should be able to stand up on their own, like how Mom taught us. Here, let me show you again." She tossed the shirt she was holding back into the pile, undoing what I had previously done. Then, with precise movements, she refolded the same garment. I felt my frustration increase. "Sophia, I appreciate the lesson, but I've folded clothes before. I'm not an idiot." She only raised her brow, a cold smile flashing on her lips. Could have fooled me. But hey, if you're okay with being mediocre, who am I to argue? Her words felt like a slap. For a time, I just stood there, watching her make my efforts appear futile. It was the same with cooking. Every dish I tried was met with criticism or downright ridicule, especially if I tried to create something Italian. One evening, I decided to try again, this time with a basic pasta dish that I believed I had nailed. Sophia arrived into the kitchen just as I was stirring the soup. "What's that supposed to be?" she inquired, staring into the pot with a doubtful expression. "It's spaghetti carbonara." "I thought it might be nice for dinner," I added, hoping for a difference in her typical gruff tone. She took a fork, tossed some pasta on it, and tasted it with an exaggerated distaste. "Nice? This is what you call nice? I wouldn't feed this to the dog, it's all wrong." I banged the pot's lid down slightly harder than necessary. "Well, it's what's for dinner. If you don't like it, you're welcome to make something else." Every day, the tension in the house increased, and Jake's absence exacerbated the situation. He was usually at the restaurant, always busy. When he was at home, he avoided all conflicts. When I tried to tell him about how his sister and mother treated me, he would just sigh and say something like, "I know it's tough, Emily, but try to hang in there. They'll warm up to you eventually, just give it time." After giving birth to my kid, I hoped things would improve. But the truth was quite the contrary. I had gained a significant amount of weight during my pregnancy, which became their new source of mocking. "Look at how much she's eating," Anna would chuckle as I tried to fuel myself for breastfeeding. "Are you feeding a child or a small army?" One day, as I was feeding my kid in the living room, I heard Sophia imitate a cow mooing from the kitchen. The sound cut through me. Tears stung my eyes. It was obvious that they considered me as nothing more than a cow, a utility for my son. I reached a breaking point. The relentless ridiculing and frigid treatment at home became unbearable. I needed a place for myself, where I wasn't just the scolded daughter-in-law or the underappreciated wife. That is when I decided to create my own YouTube channel and Instagram page. One morning, while Jake was at the restaurant and Sophia was out shopping, I put up my old camera in the corner of our tight guest room as my new impromptu gym. "I'm doing this," I whispered to myself while adjusting the angle. "For me. Not for them." I began filming easy training videos that could be done at home, particularly appealing to moms like myself who couldn't always get to the gym. Talking to a camera felt strange at first, as if I were addressing an audience who was interested in what I had to say. However, it soon became my haven. The first several videos were amateurish, with stiff commentary. "Hey everyone, it's Emily here, bringing you a quick 10-minute workout, perfect for busy moms. Let's get started." But as time passed, my follower count increased, as did my confidence. I bought a better camera, watched online courses on lighting and editing, and my little project began to take shape, something wholly mine. Sophia barged into the room one afternoon while I was filming a low-impact exercise sequence for a new video. "What the hell are you doing?" she said, her gaze jumping from the camera to mine. "You turning our home into your personal TV show now?" I paused the tape, my heart racing, not from the workout, but from the confrontation. "Yes, I am actually. It's something important to me. I need something of my own." Sophia grumbled and looked about with scorn. "You think you're some kind of star? Please. Get over yourself, Emily." Her words stung, but I was getting better at dealing with her jabs. "Well, it's not like I have your approval for anything else around here. I might as well do one thing I enjoy." Sophia rolled her eyes and marched away. But I didn't stop the camera for long. I resumed my session with a stronger voice than before. My digital profile rose, and so did the prospects. Brands began contacting me, offering free things to include in my movies. Then came the offers to sponsor posts. The first time a brand offered me money to promote their product, I was taken aback. "I can't believe they're paying me for this?" I said to Jake over dinner one night, eager to express my delight. "That's great, Emily," he said, his tone preoccupied by his restaurant issues. "Just keep it quiet, okay? Mom and Sophia don't need to know about this." As I returned to the dishes, a notice appeared on my phone. Another comment. Another follower. Another step away from their disdain, and toward something perfectly commonplace yet utterly mine. "You're doing amazing, Emily. Thanks for sharing your journey." The comment reads, "My channel was no longer just a hobby, it was a thriving business, generating more revenue than Jake's floundering eatery." Soon, I was sending him $2,000 each month to cover household expenses, making it appear like his contribution. Despite my accomplishments, Anna and Sophia continued to treat me as a freeloader. "She does nothing around here, just prances about making her silly videos," Anna would spit when she thought I was out of earshot. Sophia repeated her mother's thoughts, adding her own remarks about how I should do more housework, like a real woman. Then Jake's restaurant had a hard period. One evening, he approached me, looking more weary than I'd seen him in months. "Emily, the restaurant needs a cash injection, badly. Can you help out?" His eyes were begging. I did not hesitate, transferring $10,000 for what he described as urgent developments. He was truly thankful. But it wasn't long before he started begging for more. "Just another $55,000 for the bills this month," he remarked quietly, almost humiliated. I consented because I could afford it, and he was still my son's father, whom he adored. But, deep down, I sensed the imbalance deepening. Not just financially, but also in our relationship. Life at Jake's family home was always difficult. But it became awful when Sophia married and brought her husband, Mark, into our home. The house was full. The house was full, and any sense of solitude or tranquility I had created for myself and my baby evaporated suddenly. Anna, never one to mince words, began calling me lazy and a parasite right in front of my face. "You do nothing around here," she'd say, as I struggled to balance my online business and keeping an eye on my baby. "Just taking up space." It didn't help that Sophia was expecting her first child, and Anna made it apparent that they wanted more space, hinting that my kid and I were in the way. "Soon there'll be another baby in the house, and we can't have freeloaders taking up space," Anna remarked one evening, her gaze drawn to my direction. The atmosphere became cooler, and then, just when things couldn't get much worse, Jake stated that he needed to leave town for a few weeks to handle essential restaurant affairs in another city. He packed up and went, hugging me and our baby goodbye, ignorant to the storm he would leave behind. I attempted to keep things normal by taking my son to school and finishing my videos in the park. However, the day everything actually went apart began like any other, until it didn't. After picking up my son from school, we walked home and spoke about his day. But when we turned the corner, my stomach fell. Our stuff was stacked up on the front doorway, including suitcases, bags of clothes, and even my son's toys. Confused and heartbroken, I rang the doorbell. Anna and Sophia approached the window with chilly looks, unmoved by the sight of a mother and kid stranded outside. They opened the door just enough to speak through, but not enough to let us in. "You need to find somewhere else to stay," Anna stated, her voice stern and uncompromising. I looked at her shocked. "What are you talking about? What about Jake? What will I tell him?" I asked, my voice rising with fear and rage. Sophia chuckled in a nasty, cutting tone. "Tell him whatever you want. He's not here to care, is he?" I frantically tried phoning Jake, but my calls remained unanswered. I had no alternative but to sink deeper into despair and hatred. With no other options, I gathered our belongings and secured a room at a neighboring motel. Sitting in that sterile, darkly lit room with my confused and upset son, I felt something shift inside me. This was more than simply a brief getaway. It was a forced eviction from a life I could no longer bear. I had just finished unpacking our things when my phone vibrated with a new message. It came from Sophia. That was strange. We rarely interacted directly, especially since the fallout. Her message was surprisingly cheerful. "Thought you might want to see what your beloved husband has been up to. A link is also provided." My curiosity piqued. My anxiety increased in my chest. I clicked the link. It redirected me to a social media page with images of Jake. But not on a work trip. The photos showed him cozying up to another woman, having candlelight meals and strolling down the beach with his arms wrapped around her. What is the newest photo's timestamp? Just yesterday. I sat there numb, my phone slipping slightly from my grip as the realization dawned on me. Jake wasn't only away for business. He was living a completely different life, without us. Anger, hot and bitter, welled up inside me. But before I could drown in it, I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. "Mommy, are you okay?" My son's sweet voice, filled with sincere compassion, drew me back from the edge. I feigned a smile and scooped him up in my arms. "Yeah, buddy, I'm okay. Just a little tired, that's all." I sat there, staring at the television, a mix of rage and betrayal running through me. All this time, I had been the financial backbone for Jake's faltering restaurant and his ungrateful family, who had essentially discarded me and my baby like garbage. And here he was, leading a double life, at my expense. My phone buzzed nonstop for the next week with Jake's calls. When I eventually spoke, his voice was filled with false worry. "Emily, where are you guys? I heard about what happened. You should come back. We have bills to sort out, and the restaurant needs more funding." His statements made my blood boil, but I maintained a neutral tone. "Sure, Jake, we can discuss it. I'll come by tomorrow." "Great, I really think it's best to handle these things in person," he said, relieved. After hanging up, I felt a chilly determination descend over me. He had no idea I knew about his affair. And he had no idea I had no intention of being the forgiving wife who paid his debts. Tomorrow's meeting would be pivotal, and I was prepared. Dropping up my son at school that morning felt like the quiet before the storm. As I traveled to my mother-in-law Anna's house, where Jake, Anna, and my pregnant sister-in-law Sophia would be waiting, my stomach churned with nervousness and determination. When I arrived, Jake appeared relieved, if not delighted to see me. Unlike Anna and Sophia, whose expressions were filled with dissatisfaction. I quickly dug out the divorce papers from my suitcase and presented them to Jake. As he scanned the paperwork, his eyes widened in disbelief. Anna and Sophia smirked, believing it was their victory. But when I turned to face them, the smirk evaporated instantly. "Don't be too quick to celebrate," I cautioned, my voice calm but sharp. "You've been living off my efforts all this time." Jake's face dropped as he confessed to them. "The restaurant, it isn't doing well. It hasn't been for a long time." Anna and Sophia's joy faded, replaced by horror and rage. They immediately turned on him, their earlier delight transforming into wrath. "You've been keeping this from us?" Anna yelled. Sophia yelled, "How could you let this happen?" They were angry not at Jake's lies, but at the loss of their financial safety net. Sophia, the arrogant one, scoffed at me. "Well, Since Jake makes less than you, he'll just have to file for alimony. How's that for justice? Jake perked up and nodded enthusiastically, as if he had just discovered a way to win. I nearly chuckled at the stupidity. That's where you're wrong, Sophia, I corrected, turning to face them both. And Jake, you won't see a cent from me, not for alimony, not for anything. Jake's arrogant grin vanished. What? That's not how this works. Oh, but it is, I answered. Because I know about the affair. His face lost its color. How did you? I tilted my head, pretending innocence. Your sister sent me everything, pictures, dates, and locations. I gestured to Sophia, whose face had turned pale. Thanks to her, I have all the evidence I need. The room burst in turmoil. A flurry of accusations, denials, and frantic explanations flew between them. I let them sink in their own muck for a time before I spoke out. Oh, and one more thing, I said, my voice frigid. I'm taking back everything I paid for. The room became silent. Every appliance, every piece of furniture, everything. As truth dawned on them, their arguments came to an end. I'd previously arranged for movers. Anna and Sophia worried as they began carrying away the refrigerator, washing machine, flat-screen television, and even the beautiful blender I had purchased for them last Christmas. You can't do this? Anna exclaimed, gazing helplessly. We need those things. I caught her gaze, my tone steady but not harsh. I did this? And I need them too. The movers kept working, cleaning out about half of the house. As I watched them remove the last of my belongings, I felt lighter than I had in years. A weight lifted from my shoulders. I was no longer obligated to this house, these people, or their deception. I returned my gaze to Jake, who appeared little and forlorn, his hopes for quick money dashed. Take care of your sister and mother, Jake. That's your job now, I murmured politely, turning to go. As I walked away, I realized it wasn't just a physical departure. It was my final step out of their deceptive clutches, a step toward regaining my life and ensuring a better future for my son and me. Overall, the divorce was a relief rather than a hardship. I battled for compensation for Jake's adultery and obtained alimony for our son. My lawyer handled everything, making the procedure run as smoothly as possible given the circumstances. Jake's family's lives changed considerably as well. Without my financial backing, his restaurant went bankrupt and couldn't survive. The family house was sold to pay off debts, demonstrating their unsustainable lifestyle. Meanwhile, Anna and Sophia scrambled to contact me, their messages a combination of apologies and desperate begs for aid. Despite everything, I couldn't allow myself to be drawn back into their madness. I immediately blocked their numbers. Sophia's husband abandoned her, and now the entire family, Jake, his mother, his sister, and her child, is crowded into a small rented apartment. They created this difficult position for themselves. In contrast, life for me and Alex is improving. We've fallen into a comfortable routine in our own rented flat, which feels more like home every day. My YouTube channel and Instagram page have taken off, resonating with women, particularly new mothers, who are striving to get back into shape. Seeing the beneficial impact of my work has sparked a new idea. Create online fitness courses designed exclusively for postpartum mothers. I'm enthused about the possibilities and the opportunity to assist others who have been in my position. There was a lot to accomplish, but for the first time in a long time, the future appeared bright and full of possibilities. I had a deep feeling of serenity here, in our tiny sanctuary, with my son's laughing booming off the walls. We had made it through the storm. And now was our turn to shine. My ex-wife tried to manipulate the court for alimony, but the judge exposed her lies. She faced legal consequences, and I blocked her. Have you ever sat in court and watched someone dig their own grave in real time? Because this is exactly what my ex-wife, Jessica, did. I should have known she was going to pull something. The entire divorce procedure had been a disaster. Delays, tantrums, and unnecessary fillings to squander my time. We wouldn't be here if she had put half the effort into our marriage as she did in making my life horrible. But when she walked into that hearing pregnant, I nearly laughed. Not because I felt the child was mine, I knew it wasn't, but because I could see the plan coming together in her thoughts like a cheap soap opera script. Jessica was hoping that the judge would see a poor, helpless, abandoned pregnant lady and order me to pay up. Forget the prenup. Forget logic. Play the compassion card to get a paycheck. I could already hear her prepared speech. Your Honor, I have a baby on the way, and I've been left with nothing. How am I supposed to survive? All while giving me sideways glances and waiting for me to squirm. Too awful for her. I don't play dumb, and I never lose. Jessica had underestimated me. She expected me to worry, become flustered, and even accept a settlement in order to avoid looking terrible in front of the judge. But she had no idea what I knew. She had no idea that I had already found her out months ago. Jessica was awful not only at marrying, but also at lying. And she had no idea that the judge was about to ask her a question that would unravel her entire story. Jessica strode into the courtroom with a smug expression. She played it flawlessly, with one hand on her belly and the other tenderly combing her hair behind her ear, as if she wasn't about to commit legal fraud. She even sighed dramatically as she took her seat, as if the entire process had exhausted her. I did not react. I didn't have to because, unlike Jessica, I wasn't going in blind. I was ready. My lawyer, Ethan, was also present. Ethan was the type of person who smiled in court but would completely destroy you with the law. I didn't like attorneys much, but after seeing him unravel Jessica's schemes over the last few months, I had to confess I was relieved he was on my side. Jessica, of course, had seen 3 different lawyers since we began this divorce. The one she had today was a newcomer, just out of law school and undoubtedly eager to win his first major case. I almost felt awful for him. Because here's the thing, Jessica had done this before. Not the pregnancy stunt, but the manipulation, the pretended grief, the "I'm just a struggling woman, Your Honor, please take pity on me" performance. Unfortunately, some people purchased it, including my mother. My mother called me about a week before the hearing. "Just settle," she urged, her voice full of tiredness. "You don't want this dragging on forever." I squeezed the bridge of my nose. "Mom, she doesn't get a penny. That is why we had a prenup." "She is pregnant though. Do you really want that on your conscience?" I nearly lost it. "This isn't my kid." Mom hesitated. "Are you sure?" I wanted to laugh. "Am I sure, Mom? She repeatedly cheated on me. I caught her." I halted. "Besides, do you know what the worst part is? If I really felt she was my child, she wouldn't have to pull this nonsense. I would be there. I would take care of them. That's the difference between us. She plans, while I take responsibilities." Mom went silent, then sighed. "I just don't want to see this get uglier." It was already ugly, but I assured her I'd handle it, which leads us back to the present. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Jessica's lawyer broke down in tears right away. "Your Honor, my client has been placed in an untenable circumstance. She's pregnant, unemployed, and struggling as a result of the emotional and financial pressure brought on by this protracted divorce." Jessica sniffled on cue. I did not even blink. Ethan waited patiently, letting the drama unfold. Then he stood up, cool and composed, prepared. "Your Honor, while we obviously sympathize with Miss Parker's plight, we need to clarify a few points before moving. First and foremost," he turned to Jessica's attorney, "who is the father of this child?" Jessica suddenly tensed. I knew the question was coming. Jessica did not notice it. She imagined the court would not scrutinize her pregnancy, that she could walk in, appear fragile, and walk out with a large check. However, legally, her pregnancy was only meaningful if I was the father. Her lawyer froze and said softly, "My client believes it is the petitioner's." I nearly laughed. "Believes?" Ethan did not even flinch. "Does she believe so? There is no proof?" Jessica shuffled uneasily. The judge's gaze narrowed. "Miss Parker, have you had a paternity test done?" Jessica's mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. She was trapped. I just assumed." "You assumed?" The judge continued, unimpressed. "Miss Parker, is there any evidence to suggest the petitioner is the father?" Her lawyer seemed to want to die. Jessica appeared pallid. I relaxed back in my chair, enjoying the entertainment by this point. Ethan was prepared to finish her off. "Your Honor, we have strong reason to believe this child is not my client's." He showed out images from 2 months after Jessica and I split up, of her on vacation with another man, holding hands and kissing. Clear evidence that she had moved on. Then came the last nail in the coffin. Ethan slid medical records across the table. "Additionally, we have subpoenaed Miss Parker's recent medical records, which show that her first confirmed pregnancy test was months after she and my client had last been together." Jessica's face wrinkled. Her lawyer looked at her, understanding she hadn't told him all of this. The judge gave a long sigh and shook his head. "Miss Parker, this court does not tolerate dishonesty. Given the evidence, there is no justification for financial support. The prenuptial agreement stands. You will not receive alimony or further compensation." Boom! Jessica gasped, as if she had been physically struck. "Your Honor, this hearing is over," the judge announced. "Done." Jessica sat still, immobilized. The judge's remarks lingered in the air, but I could see it occurring in real time. Her mind searching for an escape. This was not how she expected today to go. According to her account of events, she was meant to cry, seem miserable, and leave with a large monthly check. Instead, she had been publicly exposed. Her lawyer stopped staring at her. He was staring at the floor, most likely re-evaluating every decision that had led him to take on this case. Meanwhile, Jessica was clutching the table's edge, as if she could somehow cling on to the remaining pieces of her plan. Then the tantrum began. Jessica's final desperate try. "But Your Honor," Jessica shouted out in a high-pitched voice, "this is not fair. I'm going to have a baby, and he can just walk away." The judge inhaled sharply and rubbed his temples. He was finished. "Miss Parker," he stated firmly, "this court does not render financial decisions based on emotional appeals. Your pregnancy has no legal bearing on this divorce until paternity is confirmed, which it has not, according to the evidence supplied." But the judge raised his hand. "Enough," Jessica snapped. She whirled in her chair, swinging her head at me. "Are you really going to do this to me? To your own child?" There it was. The final bet. Even after being publicly humiliated, she continued to spread mistrust. The courtroom became silent. Then I gave a leisurely, pleased, vicious smile. "You really want to do this, Jessica?" I leaned forward and spoke calmly. "Do you want to go on record accusing me of being the father? Because we can obtain a court-ordered paternity test straight away." Her face twitched. She had nothing. She knew she didn't have anything. Everyone else in the room felt the same way at that time. This time, the judge did not bother to react. He simply turned to the clerk. "The journal is done." Jessica had lost everything. But it wasn't finished yet. The hearing ended, but I wasn't done watching her break down. I went out of the courtroom with Ethan beside me, my mother following a few steps behind. I half expected Jessica to slip out quietly, but I should have known better. She stormed out after me, heels clacking, face flushed, hands shaking. "You're a monster," she snarled. "You let me sit there humiliated." I gently turned, examining her up and down. "I apologize, Jessica. Which part embarrassed you? The portion when you attempted to defraud the court, or the part where you knew I was 3 steps ahead?" Her jaw clenched. "You set me up." "No, sweetheart," I replied, smiling again. "You've set yourself up. I just let you walk in." She appeared to want to throw something at me, but then she attempted one more card. She turned to my mother. "Are you really cool with this? What did he do to me?" Mom hesitated and then crossed her arms. "I'm not okay with what you did to him," she told me. "You tricked us all once. Never again." Jessica's lips quivered. For a brief moment, I thought she may cry. Then comes the real explosion. "I hope you rot," she exclaimed, moving nearer as if she intended to claw at me. "I hope you—" "Miss Parker." The voice sounded from behind her, a severe official tone. Jessica froze. 2 court officers had entered the hallway. "Come with us, please." Her head snapped around. "What? Why?" "The judge has recommended an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud," a police officer added. "You'll need to answer some questions." Her eyes widened. "Wait, no, that's not." However, they were already leading her back into the courtroom. I let out a slow breath. Ethan touched my shoulder. "Well, that was satisfying." I smirked. "Yeah, it was." Jessica was hauled back to the courtroom. I did not follow. I did not need to. When the court personnel dragged her away, she was no longer my problem, but I made sure to follow up. Turns out the judge wasn't simply upset, he was making an example of her. Faking financial distress? Bad. Attempting to manipulate the court? Worse. Lying under oath? That is perjury. Her bogus claims meant she was now being investigated. The court not only dismissed her alimony request, but also noted her case for probable financial wrongdoing. She dug her own grave. Over the next few months, I learned bits and pieces. The judge fined her for wasting the court's time. Her lawyer dropped her immediately. Her attempt to apply for government assistance? Denied. It turns out they also need proof of paternity. What about the cherry on top? Her new boyfriend has dumped her. Apparently, once my lawyer showed those vacation images in court, the guy began doing the arithmetic. He discovered he wasn't the only one she had been with, and he wasn't sure he was the father anymore. I can only imagine the discourse. A few months following the trial, I received a text from an unknown number. "Jessica, I hope you're happy." I glanced at it for a second before typing back. "I am, Thanks for asking. I then blocked the number. I did not need to hear from her again. She'd spent years attempting to manipulate, control, and milk me for everything I owned. But now she was alone. And for the first time in a long time, I was liberated. My husband and mother-in-law treated me like a servant, mocking my efforts, demanding obedience, and making me feel invisible. Alex's words cut through the clatter of dishes like a keen scalpel. "Alara, bring me some tea now." I halted, my hands dipped in soapy water. "Hold on, I'm doing the dishes." "What?" His tone was incredulous and impatient. "Stop that and then bring me the tea right away. Can't you obey simple commands?" "But," I began, only to be interrupted. "What a useless wife you are." "Make me some sweet coffee," said another voice. Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, spoke from the living room. She sat there munching a slice of cake she had grabbed from the fridge, her eyes gleaming with malice. I sighed and looked at the stack of dishes. "There are so many. Leave them for later." "Just do what we say, useless wife," Alex's voice hissed, each syllable hurting. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother whose life felt more like a jail than a home. Married at 23, I had hoped for love and friendship, but instead found myself in the hands of Alex and his domineering mother. Our 4-year-old son was the only bright spot in an otherwise dark existence. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision foisted on me under the premise of caring for Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law died. Initially, I sympathized with her alleged anguish, but it quickly became evident that I was nothing more than a part in her cruel game of home oppression. Cooking, cleaning, and working just weren't enough. My attempts were treated with derision, and my meals were either left untouched or sharply ridiculed. "The stir-fry is so half-hearted," Mrs. Whitmore would remark. "Cook it properly from scratch." "I'm busy and can only do simple things," I'd say, trying to maintain a calm voice. "That's why I hate backtalk from my daughter-in-law," she quipped. "Cook from scratch? Why don't you cook? You are a good cook, correct?" I risked to react once and soon regretted it. "Why would I do housekeeping with you here?" She responded coldly and dismissively. "Are you out of your mind?" Their brutality grew with time, progressing from harsh words to a chilling quiet. They began to entirely disregard me, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, which was previously underestimated, now appeared completely invisible. 5 years passed in this suffocating environment. Alex and I turned 35 and 33 respectively. Our son developed, but the unpleasant atmosphere in the house remained constant. My mother-in-law, now 63, appeared to thrive on my suffering. One evening, as I trudged home from work, a heavy revelation hit me. They saw my existence as meaningless. I was a shadow, unnoticed and unheard. The only voice that acknowledged me was my son's. The idea of losing even that minor recognition was agonizing. When I returned home, I started cooking right away, hoping to lift my spirits. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, attempting to bring some regularity to our dinner. "Bring me the mayo," Alex said unexpectedly, breaking his long silence. "Sure, here you are," I said, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages were not thanks or discussion, but rather a command. It was the last straw, the limit of my patience and tolerance. Mrs. Whitmore demanded, "Clean the toilet." "What? Now?" I was shocked. "Yes, now," she demanded, her voice full of hate. I snapped back, unable to suppress my annoyance. "Don't say such a thing while we're eating. It's nasty, just like your heart," she said. Our dispute immediately escalated, with Alex interjecting and demanding that I apologize to his mother. But I refused, standing firm for the first time in years. The conflict reached its climax, and a conclusion formed within me. I needed to get out of this toxic environment, not just for myself, but also for my baby. I returned to my room, my determination stiffening. I downloaded divorce papers, completed them, and slapped them in front of Alex. His amazement was evident, but I felt just icy determination. "I'm filing these," I announced, my voice firm. As I stood there, looking at my husband's puzzled expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to regain my life. The days after I declared my divorce were a blur of frigid stares and stinging remarks, but in the midst of the chaos, I discovered an unexpected sense of freedom. Mrs. Whitmore looked at the food I was serving one evening with distaste. "You call this food? Even a child cooks better." I bit my tongue, concentrating on my son's happy expression. "Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight," Alex added in, his voice full of sarcasm. "Oh, playing the perfect mother now, are we? What a joke." I could feel my rage rising, but I held my cool. I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son. Mrs. Whitmore snorted. Don't act high and mighty. You're just a burden in this house. The tension around the table was apparent. Alex's attempts to insult me grew more intense. So, Alara, have you thought about how you'll survive after the divorce? You can barely keep a house, let alone your own life. I stared him directly in the eyes. I have been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son. His smirk faded somewhat, and a spark of concern appeared on his face. Mrs. Whitmore was quick to intercede. Don't be absurd. You need us more than we need you. The talk drifted to finances, which they typically avoided. You do realize that without my salary, this household would crumble, I said to myself rather than to them. Mrs. Whitmore sneered. We'd manage. We don't need your pity money. But Alex's silence spoke volumes. He understood the truth. They would be in serious financial trouble if I did not provide a living. Their behavior deteriorated during the next few days. Mrs. Whitmore alternated between trying to sweet-talk me into staying and shouting insults when I refused. Alex, on the other hand, appeared confused, his arrogance eroding as the reality of his financial dependency became clear. One afternoon, I overheard a talk between them that chilled me to the core. She can't just leave us like this, Alex growled. We need her money. Mrs. Whitmore's response was chilly and calculating. Do not worry. I have a plan. We'll make her life so unpleasant that she won't want to leave. Hearing their genuine objectives exposed was a revelation. They did not care about me or our son. It was all about power and wealth. That night, as I lay in bed, an idea began to emerge in my head. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one. But it would not be fought with words or trivial disputes. I'd strike them where it hurts the most, their pride and their pocketbook. The following morning, I began putting my plan into action. I contacted a lawyer, a bright, no-nonsense woman who was highly recommended. I want a divorce, and I want to make sure they don't get a penny more than they deserve, I informed the woman. She nodded, her eyes bright with determination. We'll make sure of it. You've been the only breadwinner, correct? We'll make use of that. My resolve got stronger with each passing day. I began documenting everything, insults, financial manipulation, and even little grievances. It was time to turn the tables. It was time to accept the repercussions of their deeds. As I prepared my case, I felt a sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, I felt like I had power over my own fate. The shades of scorn were slowly lifting, revealing a new dawn. As the divorce proceedings began, the mood in the house became more caustic. Yet, with each passing day, my panic faded, replaced by a steely resolve. Mrs. Whitmore decided to try a new strategy one evening. Alara, dear, why don't we forget all this nasty business? You know we're family. Her comments were insincere. I met her stare unwaveringly. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Alex, who had been silently watching, scoffed. Oh, playing the victim now? You're not as innocent as you pretend to be. I felt a wave of rage, but I kept my voice composed. I'm not playing anything, Alex. I'm just no longer willing to be your scapegoat. As is typically the case, the subject turned to finances. You think you can just take our son and leave? How will you support him? Alex was skeptical. I grinned with a tiny, confident curl of my lips. I've been supporting this family for years. I think I can manage. Mrs. Whitmore turned her gaze into a sneer. You're nothing without us. You'll come crawling back. But their remarks no longer had force over me. I recognized my worth and knew the truth. The following day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the strategy clearly. We'll expose their financial dependency on you. It will play a crucial role in the custody battle and the division of assets. I nodded, feeling vindicated. The law was on my side, and I was prepared to fight back. At home, the tension had reached a boiling point. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to discredit me got increasingly desperate. You think you're so smart, she sneered one evening. But you're just a cold-hearted woman abandoning your family. I stared her directly in the eyes. I'm a woman who's finally standing up for herself. Alex leaped in, his voice full of fury. You'll regret this? You can't survive without me. However, his threats fell on deaf ears. I was done being intimidated. As the days passed, my preparations for the court battle became more intense. I obtained financial accounts, documented their harsh remarks, and gathered evidence of their negligence. One afternoon, as I was arranging my documents, my kid approached me. Mom, are we going to be okay? His voice was soft and hesitant. I drew him into an embrace, feeling a flash of protectiveness. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place, and we're going to start a new, happy life, just you and me. His arms tightened around me, and I knew I'd made the correct decision. I was fighting not just for myself, but also for my son's future. The court hearing date approached, bringing with it the prospect of impending freedom. I was prepared to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore and put an end to their tyranny and emotional abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it delivered. The court hearing day arrived, and I was filled with both dread and determination. I felt a sense of surrealism when I sat across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in court. This was the moment when everything changed. The proceedings started with frigid formality. Alex's lawyer portrayed him as a dedicated spouse and parent battling under unjust accusations. Mrs. Whitmore played the sorrowful mother-in-law who had been wronged by her ungrateful daughter-in-law. However, their performance was apparent, and their lies were flimsy. When my turn came, I spoke clearly and steadily. I've been the only provider for this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulative behavior have been continual sources of stress. Alex intervened, his voice tinged with feigned hurt. Alara, how can you say such things? I've always backed you. I turned to him, my stare steadfast. Alex, support is more than words. It's about deeds, and your actions have only demonstrated selfishness and harshness. The judge listened closely as I presented my evidence, which included financial accounts, audio recordings of their verbal abuse, and testimony from neighbors who witnessed their behavior. The fact was undeniable. As the evidence accumulated, Alex's facade began to collapse. Mrs. Whitmore's poise shattered, and her innocence slipped away. The courtroom was quiet, the air thick with anxiety. Then came the realization that sealed their doom. My lawyer submitted photos and documentation confirming Alex's adultery and Mrs. Whitmore's clandestine affair with Mr. Harwood, a wealthy neighbor. Murmurs broke out in the courtroom as the photographs of them in compromising postures were shown. Their lie was exposed for all to see. Alex's face became ashen, his eyes wide with surprise. Mrs. Whitmore's face twisted into rage, and her hands trembled. You compromised our privacy," she yelled, her voice shrill. I glanced at her, my voice steady yet forceful. I revealed the truth, which you both had been hiding for far too long. The court shouted for order, but the harm was already done. Their credibility was shattered, and their lies were revealed in the bright light of the courtroom. As the session concluded, the judge's conclusion was apparent. I was given full custody of our son, and a fair distribution of assets was ordered. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with just their destroyed reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. The years of deception and emotional assault had finally ended. I had confronted my oppressors and emerged victorious. But the finest moment was when my son raced into my arms outside the courthouse, his face beaming with relief and joy. "We did it, Mom," he exclaimed, his voice full of delight. "Yes, we did," I said, holding him close. "We're free now. This is only the beginning for us." As we walked away hand in hand, I realized this was more than simply a personal win. It was a victory for everybody who has ever been made to feel little, helpless, or unworthy. It represented a victory for truth and justice. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one full of optimism and the promise of a better future. The court verdict had an immediate and chaotic impact. The story of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deception spread like wildfire, ruining their reputations in our little neighborhood. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days following the verdict, I concentrated on rebuilding my life with my kid, but I couldn't deny the gratification of knowing Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the repercussions of their decisions. One evening, as I was making dinner, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, appeared, her eyes crimson from unshed tears. "Alara, I've heard about everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore, did," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. I invited her in and offered a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she expressed her sadness. I trusted her as a neighbor and friend. And to think she was having an affair with my husband. Her voice trembled, so I listened and offered words of comfort. Mrs. Whitmore's actions had clearly caused far more damage than she had planned. The next day, I saw Alex in town. He was a shell of his former self, his arrogance replaced with a defeated expression. "Alara, please. Can we speak?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I paused, facing him. "What's there to talk about, Alex?" He fidgeted, unwilling to meet my gaze. I apologize for everything. I didn't understand how much I relied on you and your strength." His apologies, however late, reflected the shift in power. He had lost everything: his dignity, his home, and his family. And in that loss, he had finally admitted his own flaws. Mrs. Whitmore, however, received the greatest criticism. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only wrecked her reputation but also resulted in legal problems. Mrs. Harwood sought a divorce and sued her for alienation of affection. I learned of Mrs. Whitmore's dilemma from neighbors. Whispers and tales depicted a lady undone by her own acts. She had become an outsider, rejected by individuals she had previously considered friends. I saw her at the grocery store one day, hurrying through the aisles with downcast eyes. Our paths touched, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The sight of hatred and defeat in her eyes was undeniable. "You did this to me," she said under her breath as she walked by. I watched Sylvia leave, her figure slowly fading as she hurried away, her eyes filled with resentment. I felt a strange mix of pity for her and vindication for myself. "No, Sylvia," I whispered under my breath. "You did this to yourself." The tides of justice had finally shifted. Everything they had done to me, all the lies, the manipulation, the emotional torment, had come full circle. The consequences of their actions were now irreversible. I could see them struggling, living in the aftermath of the deceit they had carefully cultivated over the years. Their false facade had shattered, and now they were forced to face the reality of what they had become. As I watched them suffer through the consequences of their own making, I felt a sense of calm satisfaction. But it wasn't just about them getting what they deserved. The real reward was in the freedom I had gained. The best form of retribution, I realized, was not in revenge, but in living a life full of peace and strength, free from the toxicity and harmful influence they had cast upon me for so long. My focus shifted back to what truly mattered: the future I was building with my son. We were free now, free from the prison they had trapped me in for all those years. I had broken free, and now, I was living the life I had always dreamed of. This wasn't just a story of revenge or victory, it was a story of liberation. It was a powerful testament to my strength and resilience. I had taken control of my destiny, broken the chains of abuse, and freed myself from the tyranny of their manipulation. As I looked ahead, I knew that the future was bright, and the best was yet to come. I was no longer a prisoner to their cruelty. I was free, and the world was mine to conquer. I discovered my family only valued my money, not me. I cut them off, reclaimed my life, and found freedom in choosing myself over their manipulation. My name is Emma, and until a few nights ago, I believed that my family loved me. It began with a simple notification. My aunt had given me a video. I was in the midst of preparing dinner when my phone rang. I wiped my hands on a towel, grabbed my phone, and unintentionally tapped the message. At first, I assumed she sent me something random, a family movie, or an old film she found amusing. But then I heard my mom's voice. "Emma should be grateful. She'd be nothing without us." My stomach sank. The video looked unsteady, as if someone had laid their phone down without realizing it was recording, but the voices were perfectly audible. "A pathetic failure? That's what Emma is," my father said with a laugh. "But at least she's good for something, paying our bills." Laughter? I held my phone more tightly. "If Emma ever stopped sending money," my aunt, who had just sent this, said with a smirk, "we'd just guilt her into it. She's too soft to say no." My entire body became numb. "Emma. This is my name." They weren't discussing a hypothetical person. They were not fooling around. They were talking about me. I had been assisting them for years, paying their rent, covering their debts, and spending my own funds to ensure they never struggled in the same manner I did. And is this what they truly thought of me? I was still stuck, my thumb hanging over the screen, when the video abruptly disappeared. "This message has been unsent." I gazed at the notification. My aunt realized her error. She must have panicked and deleted the video, assuming I hadn't noticed. I should have challenged her. Should have called her out. I should have told them I knew everything. But instead, I put down my phone and pretended I hadn't seen it. And that's when I determined I wouldn't react. Not yet. I had a plan. I sat for what seemed like hours, staring at my phone. The words echoed in my thoughts. Emma should be grateful. A pathetic failure. She's too soft to say no. I wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. Perhaps they were joking. Perhaps I was missing some context. But deep inside I knew better. I knew the truth. They intended every word. And the worst part. They were not wrong about one thing: I was too soft to say no. How many times had they guilted me into assisting them? How many times have I put my own life on hold to ensure they got what they required? My father's temporary financial difficulties developed into me paying rent for years. My brother's tuition, he didn't even complete college. My mother's incessant emergencies, always neatly timed when I had just been paid. And I had done everything without hesitation. Because that's what families are meant to do, right? I had spent years convincing myself that I was doing the correct thing. They appreciated me. They said they loved me. But that one video shattered every fantasy I had left. And now they believed they had gotten away with it. My aunt had unsent the message, perhaps breathing a sigh of relief that I hadn't noticed it. Perhaps she even reassured everyone. Don't worry, Emma didn't watch it. They assumed I was still in the dark. That was my advantage. I could have texted her right there. Could have confronted her. I told her I had seen everything. But what would that accomplish? They'd simply deny it. Make excuses. Twist the circumstances so that I feel guilty. I'd let them assume I was still their dutiful little financial account, for the time being. The next payment was due in a few days. And this time, things would be different. The next morning, I awoke to my normal routine, but everything felt different. The sun still shone through my drapes. My coffee brewed just as it usually did. But there was this awareness in the back of my mind, as if I was observing my life from a new perspective. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. Mom. Morning, sweetie, just checking in. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message. It was usual, too normal. She never texted me simply to check in. There was always a cause, and a request was hidden somewhere. And just a few minutes later. Mom. Oh, by the way, the rent is due soon. Can you send it by Friday? There it was. The same cycle. The same motif. But this time, I was not going to play along. I typed a response with my fingertips hovering over the keyboard. My typical response would be something like of course, or no issue. Maybe I'd even apologize for taking so long, just so they didn't feel inconvenienced. Not this time. I deleted everything and simply responded, I can't this month. Before sending the message, I glanced at it for a few seconds. I set down my phone and waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Buzz. Mom. What do you mean, you can't? I could see the displeasure on the television. I'd never said no before. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took a sip of my coffee, leaving her to stew in her bewilderment. A couple more messages arrived. Mom. Emma, this is serious? We are counting on you. You know we don't have any other options right now. Another buzz. This time it's from my aunt. Aunt. Hello, honey. Your mother is freaking out. Is everything okay? I nearly laughed. Is everything okay? Sure. Everything was excellent. I had spent years paying for their life, and when I hinted at stopping, they panicked. They never asked me if I was all right, if I needed assistance. It never was about me. It had never been. I took a deep breath and responded. Me. I've had some unexpected bills this month. I cannot send anything. Sorry. That was it. There's no explanation, no apologies. And then I waited. What happened next revealed all I needed to know. The silence was terrible. For the first time in years, I had declined. They didn't know how to manage it. I stared at my phone, watching the 3 small dots appear and disappear. Over and over. My mom was typing. Stopping. Typing again. I envisioned her sitting there, fuming, trying to figure out the best way to persuade me to change my decision. Finally, her response got through. Mom. Emma, what do you mean by unexpected expenses? Is there anything more essential than your family? There it was. Guilt trip. They had always employed the same technique. I didn't respond. I simply let the message sit there. Less than 1 minute later. Mom. You know your brother doesn't have a way to pay his rent. If he's kicked out, that's on you. Ah. The brother card. Classic. Then another message. Mom. Emma, we raised you. We cared for you when you had nothing. Is this how you're repaying us? I gritted my jaw and tightened my fingers around my phone. When I had nothing? They never cared for me. I put myself through school. I worked 3 jobs to get out of that house. And as soon as I got money, they hung on to me like leeches, sucking me dry. They grabbed everything, so I had nothing. My phone vibrated again. Aunt. Emma, dear, do not do this. We are family. Your mother is merely upset. You know how she gets. Simply send the rent, and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Who is it fine for? I put down my phone, my heart hammering. I needed a second to breathe and ponder. I strolled to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and took a slow sip while looking at the clock on the wall. I could feel something shifting within me. For years, I had been afraid of this moment. I was afraid that if I stopped paying, they would detest me. They would cut me off. They would turn their back on me. But now I know the truth. They've never loved me. They adored what I could offer them. And the moment that ceased, they would reveal who they were. Buzz. I strolled back to my phone and picked it up with firm hands. This time, the communication came from my father. Dad. Emma, I'm not sure what has gotten into you, but this is unacceptable. You are being selfish. This family needs you, and you're behaving like an entitled brat. Grow up and do the right thing. There it was. The final mask slips. No more faking kindness. No more pretending to care, just demands. I stared at the words, my heart racing in my ears. Then another notification came up. A voice message. From my aunt. My hands trembled as I paused, my thumb lingering above the play button. Something told me this would change everything. I hesitated for a long time, staring at the small play button on the screen. A voice message. From Aunt D. My heart beat against my ribcage. She was not the type to send voice messages. If she had something to say, she usually sugarcoated it in text, passive-aggressive with just enough phony sweetness to make me feel bad. But this was different. Slowly, I pressed play. Her voice came through, harsh and impatient. Aunt. Listen, Emma. I'm not sure what game you're playing, but this isn't humorous. Your mother is losing her sanity. Your father is upset. And honestly, I do not blame them. You have always been a little ungrateful. But this is quite selfish. I felt my gut clench, but I forced myself to continue listening. Aunt. You have a wonderful job, right? You earn more than any of us. You don't even need the money. Meanwhile, your family is struggling. So what? Did you just wake up one day and realize you don't care? A bitter laugh. You owe them, Emma. After all they've done for you. Following all the sacrifices they made. They gave you life. Now you're going to walk away? Pretend they do not exist. What kind of a daughter would do that? She breathed forcefully, and for a moment I believed she was finished. But then, Aunt. You know what? Her tone altered, becoming colder now. If you truly want to be that kind of person, that's fine. But do not expect them to forgive you. Don't expect to come crawling back once you discover how much you rely on them. Because when you pass this line, there's no going back. The message terminated. Silence. I let the words sink, my thumb hovering over the replay button. My ears rang, and my hands were numb. I should have been afraid. I should have panicked. I should have been hurrying to make things right, to correct this, to apologize. But instead, I felt relaxed. More than that, I felt free. Because she'd just verified everything. They did not love me. They did not respect me. They did not even recognize me as a person. They regarded me as nothing more than a financial account. A moving, breathing ATM. And the instant I stopped distributing money, I was nothing. And if that was the case, perhaps it was time to become nothing to them. Buzz. Another communication from my mom. Mom. This is your last opportunity, Emma. Send the rent. I stared at the message for a very long time. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her. I blocked my father, I blocked my aunt. And suddenly, for the first time in years, I was free. Or so I thought. Because the next day, my brother arrived at my home. The knock at my door sent shivers down my spine. It was early. It's too early. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon at this early hour, when most people were still sleeping. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Perhaps it was a neighbor. Perhaps there was a parcel. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. Then, another knock. This time, it was louder. Become more insistent. I took a slow breath, braced myself and walked to the door. My fingers paused on the handle, and my heart pounded in my chest. And then I opened it. There he was. My brother. His face contorted between fury and desperation, and his clothes wrinkled as if he hadn't slept. God's eyes. Bloodshot. Wild. Are you serious, Emma? His voice was as cutting as a sword shoved against my skin. What the hell is wrong with you? I blinked and kept my expression neutral. Good morning to you too. He scoffed and ran his hand through his already untidy hair. Don't do that, Don't act like this isn't a big deal. You blocked everyone. Mom is freaking out. Dad's losing his mind. You're just. What? Cutting us off? Pretending we don't exist? I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame. I don't know, Jason. Maybe I just got tired of being treated like a piggy bank. His jaw clenched. Oh my God. Not this again, not this again. I gave out a sour laugh. Jason, I've been paying your rent for years. I've covered your bills, your food, even your stupid gym membership. And the one time I say no? The one time I set a boundary? Mom calls me a selfish brat, Dad says I'm unacceptable, and you show up at my door like I committed a crime. His lips parted as if he were going to argue, but no words emerged. So I continued going. And don't even try to pretend you care about me. I cocked my head, my voice cold. I saw the video. His face turned pallid. For the first time, genuine dread flashed across his eyes. What video? I smiled, but it was not a pleasant one. You know exactly what video. Jason shifted on his feet, looked aside as his hands balled into fists. Look, it wasn't serious, okay? We were just joking. You're being dramatic. Joking? My voice was soft, yet as sharp as glass. You all sat around laughing, calling me a pathetic failure. Saying I should be grateful for the chance to pay your bills. Do you know what that feels like, Jason? To hear your own family talk about you like that? He breathed sharply and rubbed his face. Emma, come on. No. I cut him off. You come on. You want money? Get a job. You want someone to take care of you? Find someone else. Because I'm done. Silence. He just stood there and stared at me. And for a little moment, I saw something spark across his face. Something rough. However, it was gone just as suddenly. You don't mean that, he grumbled. I retained his stare. Yes, I do. Another lapse in stillness. Then his expression darkened. His mouth curled into something unpleasant. Fine, he snapped. You want to be a selfish bitch? Go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize you have no one left. With that, he turned to walk away. I stood there, watching him leave. My chest was tense, yet my back was straight, because he was incorrect. I did have someone leave. I had myself. But, as I closed the door, letting out a trembling breath, my phone vibrated. I looked at the screen, and the familiar name flashed. It was my mom. But I was not going to pick up. Not this time. I had been at her mercy for so long. Her demands, her guilt trips, the way she used my own sense of duty against me, manipulating me into giving up all I had in order to keep her from breaking apart. Not anymore. I went away with the phone facing down. The truth was, I was done. I'm done with being a continual source of money. I'm tired of being the safety net that kept my family afloat when they couldn't be bothered to forge their own path in life. I'm done with lies and manipulation. They never asked me how I was doing. Never considered the toll it had on me to continually take up the slack. I had been carrying their weight for years, my mother's, my father's, and my brother's. All of them acting as if I owed them something, as if my life was just one long, endless repayment for everything they had done for me. But nobody had ever asked what I needed. Nobody had ever cared for me. And now, I was taking control. But my decision was not unnoticed. The following morning, when I sat in my living room, the silence felt oppressive. The weight of my decision was beginning to sink in. But there were no regrets. No second guessing. I had made the correct decision. Then, my doorbell rang. I was not surprised. It was Jason. I could tell by the way he knocked, demanding and impatient. This was the last person I expected to show up. But it's not surprising at all. I slowly opened the door, keeping my expression neutral. Emma, he began, his usual arrogant tone gone, replaced by something almost pleading. You need to listen to me. I did not welcome him in. I stood at the doorway, arms crossed. I don't need to listen to anything you have to say, Jason. He blinked, taken aback. No, you don't understand. His tone softened, almost desperate. Mom's freaking out. Dad's calling me, asking what's going on. They don't know how to fix this? You've cut us all off. You can't just leave us hanging like this. I scoffed and leaned against the doorframe. Oh, I'm sorry, did you think I was just going to keep enabling you? Keep paying your rent, your bills, and pretending everything was fine? No, Jason, I'm done. I don't care how much you or mom or dad beg. I'm done playing the role of the family ATM. His eyes flared with rage. You're acting like we've never done anything for you. Like we're all just users, right? I did not flinch. Oh, believe me, I know exactly what I've been to you all. I've been a cash machine. A free ride. And I'm tired of it. Jason's face twisted. You can't just leave us hanging like this. You owe us, Emma. The words stung. But they did not shatter me. They only made me more determined. I owe you, I said, my voice firm. I've given you everything. I paid for your rent, your groceries, your bills, while you just sat there and watched me do it. And you want to talk about owing? His fist clenched at his side. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. I couldn't help laughing. No, Jason. You'll regret it. Because I'm not the one who needs you anymore. Without waiting for his reaction, I slammed the door in his face. It felt nice. But I sensed that the drama was far from ended. Later that night, my phone vibrated again. I almost did not want to check it, but curiosity gnawed at me. It was from my father. Dad. Emma, we raised you. Do not assume you can simply walk away from everything we've done for you. You're making an enormous mistake. Come back. We'll chat about it. We will fix this. I could almost sense desperation in his words. I sat there for a time, phone still in hand. I could have ignored it. I may also have blocked him. But I had a better idea. I wasn't simply going to block them. I was going to make them pay for every single lie, every single time they took me for granted. And it was going to start now. I stood up, approached my desk, and opened my laptop. It was time to deliver a message they would never forget. So I started typing. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't going to sit back and let them reintegrate into my life as if nothing had happened. I was done being the punching bag. This time, I was in control. I thought about everything I had done for them. All of the payments I'd made, the bailouts. I swallowed my pride and helped them, even though I knew I was the one being drained. No more. Now was their turn to feel the consequences of their conduct. I opened my email and began typing. First, I gathered all of the financial records. Every payment I'd ever made on their invoices. Each bank transfer. Every check I'd sent over the years to compensate for their faults. It was time to remind them of the things they had taken from me. I added a remark to the top of the email. Here's a detailed summary of everything I've done for you over the years. I'm done being your lifeline. I'll no longer be your ATM, and I'll no longer let you make me feel guilty for choosing myself. Consider this my final invoice. You don't owe me anything anymore, but you will owe yourself the realization of how much I've sacrificed, all because I thought family was supposed to help each other, not drain each other. Then I added the receipts, bills, and payments I'd sent. But it was not the end. Definitely not. I signed on to the family group chat, which used to keep me on edge with their complaints and demands. I browsed through the messages, reading the ones where they said they needed me and guilted me into assisting them. Then I tried something I hadn't done in years. I responded. You all talk a lot about what you've done for me, but you've forgotten how much I've given up for you. And here's the reality check. You never needed me. You just used me. I'm done. This is my last message. Don't ever contact me again. I sent it. The silence that followed was nearly lovely. I slumped back in my chair, feeling the weight of the decision wash over me. For once, there were no more phone calls. No more guilt trips. No more pretending they had any authority over me. They might continue their manipulations, lies, and empty promises. I was free. But just when I thought it was finished, I got one last message. From Jason. You're making a mistake, Emma. You'll regret this. Family sticks together. I smiled to myself. I knew he was only attempting to get under my skin, but this time, it didn't work. Because I didn't need them. I had a life. My freedom. And it was enough. It wasn't the dramatic explosion I had envisioned. It wasn't a great clash. But in its own way, this was much better. I had assumed command without anyone seeing it coming. And the best part. They lost their control over me. As I turned off my phone for the night, a sensation of calm washed over me. I did not have to play their game. I didn't have to continue sacrificing myself for those who didn't value me. It wasn't the revenge I expected. It was quieter. Be more deliberate. And far more satisfying. Now I could finally breathe. And the best part, I could finally live for myself, and that, in the end, was the sweetest victory. Reflection. Wow, what a ride that was, right? It's incredible to think of how much Emma had to endure for so long. But in the end, she gained control of her life. I admire how she refused to let her family's conflict and guilt bring her down. Instead of a massive conflict, she simply cut them off quietly, but with force. Making a scene is not always the best way to exact revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and showing that you're no longer a doormat. But here's the thing, not everyone would have handled it that way. Some could argue that she should have pushed for the relationship. Maybe even give them a second opportunity. Others may believe she made the correct decision by removing them entirely. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Emma's decision? Was her silent vengeance satisfying, or overly harsh? Please share your ideas in the comments below. I would love to know what you think. I refused my aunt's outrageous request, but she manipulated my husband into leaving me. I later found out he had been having an affair with her. I, 28F, have been married to my spouse, Adam, 30M, for 3 years. We had our ups and downs, as any marriage does, but I thought we were relatively stable. That is why the entire situation has taken me entirely by surprise, and I am now wondering whether I am somehow responsible for this catastrophe. My aunt, let us call her Natalie, has always been strange, to say the least. Growing up, she was the type of person who would perform a favor for you just to hold it over your head for the rest of your life. As a child, I remember her as an overbearing presence, always talking about how much she had done for everyone and how much they owed her. It was simply her method of retaining control. She is known in the family for being manipulative, but I never expected to get caught up in her games, especially not like this. Years ago, when I was younger, about 18 or 19, I was going through a difficult financial period. My parents were not present at the time, and I had recently moved out on my own, scraping by on part-time jobs and figuring things out. It was a terrible moment, and Natalie came through for me in ways that I sincerely appreciated at the time. She lent me some money, not a lot, but enough to get me through a couple of months until I could get back on my feet. I thanked her politely and eventually paid her back in full. I assumed that was the end of it, and for years it appeared to be. She never brought it up or stated that I owed her anything, so I believed that was all in the past. Fast forward to now, and Natalie has a daughter. Let's call her Grace. Grace and I were never close growing up. She is a few years younger than me, but we have always been in separate social circles. The reality is that we've never really liked each other. She has always been the spoiled, entitled type, getting everything she wants because Natalie always puts her first. Grace commands the spotlight at family gatherings. During the holidays, Grace receives the greatest gifts, the most praise, everything. I've learned to overlook it over time because that's how Natalie operates. She adores her daughter as if she were a princess, and the rest of us are expected to be grateful simply to be in their company. So Grace's birthday is coming up. Natalie has been hinting for weeks that her daughter's birthday should be exceptional and that she wants to offer her everything. At first, I didn't think much of it because Grace's birthday isn't exactly on my radar. When Natalie suggested it, I was nice and replied something like, "Oh, that sounds great," but I wasn't really paying attention. Then, out of nowhere, Natalie phones me one evening and says she has to speak with me about something serious. I assumed it was for Grace's birthday or a family event, so I agreed to meet up with her. When we met, Natalie made the most odd and absurd request I've ever heard. She told me straight out that the only thing Grace wants for her birthday is for me to leave my husband, Adam. I was stunned. Like, what? Why? Why would she even think about that? Natalie went on to say that Grace has had a crush on Adam for years, something I had no idea about, and that she believes he is her soulmate or something. According to Natalie, Grace has been longing for him since the day they met, and now that she is about to turn 26, she believes this is her final chance to be with him. She truly believes Adam belongs with her and that I am preventing them from being happy together. At first, I assumed this was a joke. Natalie couldn't possibly expect me to leave my spouse as a birthday present for her daughter. But as she continued speaking, I understood she was dead serious. She even brought up the money she lent me years ago, claiming that I owed her and that this was the best way to repay her. According to Natalie, if I were truly grateful for her assistance when I was struggling, I would do this for her daughter. I was extremely shocked. I couldn't believe what I heard. Of course, I said no. I was not going to end my marriage over an absurd demand from my aunt. I informed Natalie that this was preposterous, that I would never abandon Adam, and that I owed her nothing. I had reimbursed her for the money, and whatever favor she believed she had done for me gave her no right to demand this. She didn't take it well. Natalie got angry and accused me of being ungrateful and self-centered. She went on and on about how Grace deserved happiness, how she had made many sacrifices for me over the years, and how I was ruining everything by refusing to see reason. I walked out of that conversation exhausted but convinced that I had done the right thing. I was not going to allow her to influence me like that. I didn't give it much thought after that, but a few days later, things started to change between me and Adam. He grew aloof and colder than normal. When I asked him what was wrong, he just brushed me off. I assumed he was upset at work or something, but then he sat me down and announced that he was leaving me. He didn't go into great detail, just expressing that things weren't going well and that he thought it was time for us to part ways. I was devastated. This came out of nowhere, and I had no idea what had happened so fast. It wasn't until a mutual buddy contacted me that I learned what had transpired. Natalie allegedly went behind my back after our talk and told Adam everything, but she twisted the tale so that it appeared I was to blame. She informed Adam that I had been ungrateful for everything she had done for me, that I had no regard for family, and that I had been keeping secrets from him. She even made up stories about how distant and cold I had been with Adam, twisting the situation to make it look that I was the problem in our marriage. According to what I've heard, she convinced him that I wasn't telling him the truth, which pushed him over the line. So now I'm attempting to pick up the pieces of my life after my spouse abandoned me due to my manipulative aunt. Part of me wonders whether there was already something wrong with our marriage, and this was the final straw. Maybe I missed some signs. Maybe I wasn't as good a wife as I thought. But another part of me is outraged. How could Natalie have done this to me? How could she go behind my back and destroy my marriage simply because I refused to give her what she wanted? And why did Adam believe her so quickly? Shouldn't he have trusted me enough to at least discuss it with me before making such a big decision? I'm so confused and hurt right now, and I don't know what to do. My family is divided on the issue, with some saying I should have simply let it go and others agreeing Natalie is out of line. But the reality is, I don't think this is just about Natalie anymore. I believe there is a greater issue at play, such as Adam searching for an out and seeing this as the perfect reason. I'm not sure whether I'm overreacting, but I can't shake the sensation that this entire thing is somehow my responsibility. Perhaps if I had handled things differently with Natalie and paid more attention to Adam's needs, none of this would have occurred. But, at the same time, I feel as if I was backed into a corner and would have lost regardless of what I did. So I die for refusing my aunt's foolish request to leave my husband as a birthday present for her daughter. Am I to blame for my husband leaving because of what she told him? I just need some feedback on this because everything seems to be spiraling out of control right now, and I'm not sure where to turn. Update 1. Hello everyone, it's been a few weeks since my life totally crumbled, and I'm still trying to figure out how to go on from what occurred with my aunt, Natalie, and my husband Adam. Things have been difficult to process. I never thought I'd be providing an update, yet here I am, trying to make sense of it all. At first, I assumed it was all due to Natalie's intervention, but considering everything that has transpired since, I'm beginning to wonder if there was something else going on between Adam and me, something I missed. I've been trying to piece it all together, and I keep coming back to the same question. Was this previously broken, and I simply didn't realize it? When Adam told me he was leaving, he didn't give me much detail. He merely told me that things were not going well and that he thought it was time to part ways. There was no big struggle or explosion, it was just over. I was heartbroken and puzzled. I assumed we were secure, or as secure as any marriage with ups and downs. Everything felt like it happened out of nowhere. After sitting with my thoughts and feelings for a few days, I decided to contact Adam. I wasn't willing to give up without at least discussing it. I texted him, asking if we could meet up and discuss what had transpired. I didn't get an answer straight away, and I spent the following 3 days in limbo, waiting for a response. Finally, Adam responded back, indicating he was not interested in chatting and that he had made his decision. I was devastated. It was as if he had closed the door on everything without thinking. However, this was not the worst part. He also told me he was already seeing someone else. Mind you, it hadn't even been a month since he left me when I discovered how quickly he had moved on. My world came apart. Was this someone he had been seeing before our breakup? Was I so blind that I didn't notice him drifting away sooner? I didn't ask him any of these questions because, frankly, I didn't want to know the answers. It felt like everything we had was erased in the blink of an eye. It's impossible to convey the range of emotions I've been feeling: anger, betrayal, confusion. It's all coming together. How did he manage to move on so quickly? How could he be so willing to let go of what we've accomplished? I'm wondering if this new relationship started before he left, or if there were issues in our marriage that I simply overlooked. I've been looking over every discussion we've had in the last few months to see if there were any red signals I overlooked. Nothing stands out. We had our regular fights, nothing major, and I never anticipated things to fall apart so quickly. Maybe I was too preoccupied with my own life and missed the signs that he was drifting away, but I also wonder if Adam had been looking for an escape all along and Natalie's manipulation was just the excuse he needed. My family is divided on the whole issue. Some people say I should have let it go to prevent the conflict with Natalie. Others agree that Natalie was completely out of line, and that I made the perfect decision by refusing her. However, in the end, none of this matters. The damage is done. Adam is gone, and I'm forced to figure out how to restart my life now that he's moved on with someone else. I haven't spoken with Natalie or Grace since everything went down. They are no longer a part of my life, and I am grateful not to be exposed to their toxic energy. The thought that Natalie could go behind my back, influence Adam, and essentially ruin my marriage still baffles me, but I've recognized that there's no sense in attempting to undo what happened. What's done is done, and I need to go on. I'm going to be honest. I believe Adam is seeing Grace. I mean, it just makes sense that Natalie wanted me to end my marriage so Grace and Adam could be together. So, perhaps that is what is happening. I don't know, but I want to find out. Regarding Adam, I wish I could say I'm over it, but I am not. I still love him, and I probably always will. But I know our marriage is over. He has moved on, and it is now my turn to do the same. It will take time for me to recover from this, and there are days when the pain is terrible. But I want to get past it someday. Update 2. Hello everyone. First and foremost, thank you so much for all of your support, guidance, and kind words on my last post. I never anticipated so many people to care about my predicament, and it has meant everything to me. Before I begin the update, I'd like to address something that many of you mentioned. Many people suspected Adam was seeing Grace, and to be honest, I was beginning to believe it as well. Natalie had pushed me so hard to leave Adam for Grace's sake, and the way things turned out convinced me that there was something between them. Why would she make such a foolish request? I couldn't believe my aunt would ask me to leave my husband as a birthday present for her daughter if Adam and Grace weren't already dating. That's when things took an unexpected and really distressing turn. About 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Stephen, my Aunt Natalie's husband and Grace's father. I hadn't spoken to him in a long time, especially after things had gone bad, but he pleaded to meet in person, claiming he had something vital to tell me. Given how crazy things had already become, I was doubtful at first. I didn't want to get engaged in any more family drama, especially after what happened to Natalie and Grace. But something about Stephen's tone made me want to hear him out, so I agreed to meet up. When we met, Stephen appeared tired, as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. I knew straight away that whatever he had to say would not be easy. He began by apologizing for Natalie, Grace, and all that had occurred. I had no idea where he was going with this, but then he revealed something unexpected. Adam was not seeing Grace. He was seeing Natalie. Yes, it's my aunt. Natalie, my manipulative and toxic aunt, is 50 years old. I was speechless. My mind went blank as I tried to figure out what he was saying. For a brief moment, I believed I had misheard him, but Stephen went on to recount everything in horrific detail. Natalie and Adam appeared to have been having an affair for some months. Stephen discovered it when he returned home early from a business trip one weekend. He walked into their house, into his bedroom, and found Natalie and Adam in bed together. My spouse and aunt, in their bed. Stephen admitted he had no idea how long it had been going on, but based on some of the texts and messages he discovered, it had been at least a few months, if not more. Natalie had been seeing Adam behind my back as she pressed me to leave him for Grace. The whole birthday present foolishness was just a distraction, a ruse to deceive me and everyone else while she secretly had an affair with my husband. I felt as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. I thought I was prepared for anything, but this exceeded my expectations. I was having trouble understanding what Stephen was saying. Natalie, among other persons. I knew she was manipulative, but I didn't expect her to do this. And Adam, the man I thought I knew and had built a life with, had he been sneaking around with my aunt the entire time? But it didn't end there. Stephen went on to inform me that Natalie had decided to leave him. Natalie intended to leave Stephen on Grace's birthday, and she and Adam were apparently planning to blow everything up. Yes, you have read right. She planned to devastate her own family on her daughter's birthday before fleeing with my husband. Grace was completely oblivious of all of this, which was just another layer of deception. Natalie had used her daughter as a pawn in this horrible, twisted game, fooling everyone into believing Grace had affections for Adam while, in reality, she was sleeping with him. Stephen informed me about it, and I sat there startled. I was unsure how to react. I had been concentrating all of my efforts on determining whether Adam was seeing Grace when, in fact, Natalie, my own aunt, had misled me in the worst conceivable way. After Stephen finished telling me everything, he handed me his phone and showed me some of the messages between Natalie and Adam. I couldn't look at them for long because it was too painful, the way they talked about me, their plans, and how they were going to start over after the dust had fallen. It made me physically ill. I still can't believe it. I spent weeks trying to believe that Adam could have feelings for Grace, but now, this was beyond anything I could have anticipated. Natalie had planned the entire affair from the beginning. She misled me and her own spouse while secretly having an affair with my husband. I've been trying to figure out where I should go next, but I'm still in shock. I thought I was dealing with a husband who left me for another woman, but now I'm having to accept the fact that he left me for my aunt, whom I considered family. I'm not sure if they're still seeing each other or if their little scheme failed when Stephen caught them. Part of me doesn't care at this point. What is done, and regardless of what happens to them, the harm has already been done to me. I wish I could say there is a silver lining, but for the time being, all I can do is attempt to get through it. I'll keep you all updated if anything changes, but for the time being, I'm just figuring out how to move ahead after everything that's happened. Thank you for your continued support. It has been a lifeline during this horror. Update 3. Hello everyone, it's been a while since the last update, and a few things have happened in the interim, so perhaps this is the final update to the horror I've been experiencing. I faced Adam, and while the outcome was not what I had hoped for, it did provide some closure. I suppose I always knew I'd have to address him personally. I simply didn't expect it to be that dramatic, or for him to beg me to take him back after discovering Natalie wasn't who he thought she was. It's tough to understand how I felt leading up to that moment, but I knew I couldn't move on with my life unless I confronted Adam. I needed to express my feelings and get the complete truth from him, no more running or second guessing. So I finally reached out to him and told him we needed to meet and chat. We met in a park, somewhere neutral, where I felt I could keep my emotions under control. I did not want the confrontation to take place in our home, which had so many memories, both good and bad. I got to the park and finally saw him after so many days. It felt odd. He looked fatigued, as if he hadn't slept in days, but I didn't care enough to ask him what had occurred or why he was so tired. I just went right to it. I assured him I knew everything. I informed him that I knew about Natalie and that she was the lady he had been fooling around with while I sat at home, trusting and loving him. The shock on his expression was not the same as when someone is apprehended. It felt more like shame. He couldn't look me in the eye for a time. He did not defend himself, which shocked me because I had expected excuses or an attempt to cover up. Instead, he simply nodded and confessed it. He verified everything. In some ways, it felt underwhelming. There was no rage or screaming, just a pitiful admission that he had damaged our marriage by having an affair. I had a lot I wanted to say. I had spent hours rehearsing this in my thoughts, but when the moment arrived, all I could say was, why? I needed to know what was wrong with us, or with me, that he would cheat on me like this. Adam began discussing how he was no longer pleased and how our marriage had become a routine. He mumbled something about being stuck, and Natalie helped him feel alive again. It felt like a punch in the belly. I couldn't believe he was using boredom as an excuse to wreck our lives. I stood there feeling disgusted. I informed him immediately that his selfishness had cost him everything. There were many other methods for him to deal with his feelings of being stranded. We could have sought therapy, taken a break, and communicated, but he decided to cheat on me, lie to me, and end our marriage. And that's when I informed him. I informed him that I was filing for divorce. I shouted it clearly and without hesitation, and a strange sense of power came over me. For the first time, I felt in control. I wasn't pleading with him to stay, nor was I forgiving him for his horrible decisions. I was finished. That is when the unexpected happened. Adam, who had been so casual about the affair up until this point, suddenly broke down. I'd never seen him like this. He genuinely began crying. I'm not talking about a few tears. He sobbed. He grabbed my hands and begged me not to forward with the divorce. He explained that everything with Natalie had come apart, that she was not who he thought she was, and that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He stated that once the excitement of their affair faded, her actual personality emerged. Apparently, she is manipulative and domineering, often starting conflicts and even threatening to reveal their affair if he did not do things her way. He claimed she had made his life a terrible nightmare, and he regretted everything. It was strange to stand there and see this man, who had before appeared unaffected, break down in front of me. He told me he felt adrift without me and couldn't believe he'd given up our life together for someone like Natalie. He stated that he still loved me and would do anything to make things right. But honestly, I didn't feel anything. I had no sympathy for him, no desire to reclaim him, and no pity for him because of Natalie's conduct. I felt numb. The trust was gone. He had damaged it, and no amount of tears or apologies would fix it. I informed him that it was too late. I informed him that there was no way to restore what he had done, and I was not interested in attempting to heal the damage to our marriage. I believe that's when he understood I was serious. I was not going to forgive him, and there was no way to make things right or get back together. He kept begging, attempting to persuade me that we could work this out, that he was willing to do whatever it needed. But I'd already made a decision. I informed him that I deserved better, that I was moving on with my life, and that we had no future together. I believe part of me was expecting him to become defensive or lash out, as he had done in the past when we battled. But this did not happen. Instead, he broke down even more, realizing he'd lost me forever. I departed after that. I walked away without looking back. I've already filed for divorce, and it feels like a great weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I'm not claiming it's been easy. I still find it difficult to breathe at times because I am so heartbroken and deceived. But I know I made the correct decision. I know this is what I need to do to improve myself and start a new life. According to what I've heard, Natalie is furious with Adam for attempting to reconnect with me. Apparently, things between them worsened not long after the truth was revealed, and they are now both unhappy. Adam is paying the price for his decisions, and while I would never wish such chaos on anyone, I am no longer concerned. I don't care what happens between them. I'm just happy to be free of it. I've cut Natalie out of my life permanently. There is no forgiveness, no opportunity for reconciliation. I have no room in my heart for folks who betray me like way. She has left, and I am now focusing on myself. This has been the most difficult experience I have ever had, but it has taught me a lot about my own strength. I've discovered that I don't need someone who disrespects, lies, or cheats on me. I deserve a partner who appreciates me and our relationship, and I will never settle for anything less again. So that's it. I'm taking each day as it comes. It will take time to heal, but I am confident that I am on the correct path. Thank you to everyone who has offered me advice and support along the process. It mattered more than you could ever realize. I'm now ready to be done with this drama and move on with my life. My brother got my fiancée pregnant, and my dad gave him the family business and a house, so I decided to make them both pay for their betrayal. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. Okay, people, this is going to be long, but I need to get this off my chest. The recent events in my family have been extremely upsetting, but in order to understand why, you must first understand the context. I am 33 years old, and I grew up with my younger brother Alex, who is 30 years old, in what appeared to be a normal household from the outside. But, gosh, the dynamics in our house were severely off. See, Alex was a miraculous baby. Mom had a difficult pregnancy with him, and he was quite sick for the first couple of years, in and out of the hospital, breathing problems, infections, the entire thing. I recall sitting in hospital waiting rooms a lot as a child. I understand that having a sick child is scary, but even when Alex recovered, my parents, particularly my father, continued to treat him as if he were made of glass. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the perfect, responsible elder brother who should know better about everything. Alex could miss school. He needed to recuperate. Alex failed a class. He has been through a lot. Alex broke something expensive. Don't be upset with your brother, what about me? From the age of 7, I was expected to obtain excellent grades, never say anything back, work around the house, and overall act like a small grown-up. The double standard was ridiculous. I recall one incident in high school when I received detention for being late to class and was grounded for a week. That same month, Alex was caught skipping school to hang out with his friends at the mall, and my parents had just spoken with him about it. When I was 15, I started working with my father in his electrical business, not because I was particularly interested in becoming an electrician, but because it was the only way I could obtain his attention or acceptance. And you know what? I actually grew better at it. Very good. I began learning everything I could about electrical work, staying late to watch Dad handle the difficult tasks, reading manuals, and watching YouTube videos to learn more. Meanwhile, Alex remained, well, Alex. He was a smart kid when he wanted to be, but he lacked work ethic. He could enchant everyone with his sad little ill kid routine, which he never outgrew. He attempted college for about 2 semesters, got out because it was too stressful, began an online business selling dropship trash that flopped, and then tried to be a day trader, losing a lot of his father's money. But nevertheless, I was still the one receiving lectures about supporting your brother and putting family first. I won't lie, it made me feel a strange mix of hatred and responsibility. I liked my brother because he was my brother, but I couldn't tolerate being around him the most of the time. We were complete opposites. I was the serious, hard-working person who valued keeping my word and doing things well. He was the fun one who never faced repercussions and believed regulations were for other people. Dad's business was dependable. Basic home electrical work, some small commercial work, nothing special, but it paid the bills. I saw potential in it, however. When I wasn't working, I was studying about new technologies, smart home systems, and security installations. Dad was old school, preferring to do things the way he'd always done them, but I insisted on modernizing and taking on larger projects. The strange thing is that even when I brought in new clients or completed large projects flawlessly, Dad would find a way to credit Alex. Your brother's charm really helps with customer relations. He answered phones sometimes. Alex has such good ideas for the business. He suggested we get a website. In 2020, I moved out as soon as I could afford it. I moved into my own place around 20 minutes from my parents' house, close enough to help with the business but far enough away to have some space. I felt I was doing fairly well. I had my own place, made decent money, and was learning new skills. I was even considering getting my master electrician license and even having my own business someday. Sophie, a 29-year-old female, and I met around 6 years ago while working on a large rewiring job at these upscale flats downtown. She was the property manager there. The first time I saw her, she was arguing with some HVAC technicians about their substandard work, getting into the technical specifics of why their installation was not up to code. I recall thinking, damn, she actually knows her stuff. Most property managers I'd dealt with wanted things done cheaply and quickly, but Sophie was different. She had read through all of the electrical codes and knew exactly what she wanted done. For the first few weeks on the job, she kept coming around to inspect our work, not in an irritating way, but because she truly wanted to know what we were doing and why. I began taking lunch breaks when I realized she'd be making her rounds. We'd discuss the project first, then about other topics. She told me about growing up with her father, a general constructor, and how she learned everything about construction by helping him on assignments. I informed her about my desire to update my father's business and potentially grow into more commercial work. She was simple to chat to, right? I could rave about my family turmoil, and she understood. Her brother was also the beloved kid, a hotshot lawyer who could do no wrong. We joked about forming a support group for responsible siblings. After we finished the apartment job, I assumed that was it, but about a week later, she called the office to report an urgent electrical problem in her own apartment. Dad asked me to check it out. It turned out there was nothing wrong. She just wanted to see me again. I have to say, that was a really nice maneuver. We began dating after that. Sophie was different from the other girls I dated. She did not play games or expect me to read her mind. If something bothered her, she would simply express it. If she was happy, you would know. She also showed genuine interest in my job. She'd helped me study for my licensure examinations and eventually started assisting with the business side of things. Within a year, she was effectively running our business, having implemented a new scheduling system, upgraded our invoicing, and prepared actual contracts in place of the handwritten quotes we used to use. Dad was initially unhappy about it. He preferred doing everything on paper, but he had to acknowledge the firm was functioning more smoothly. I finally felt like I was creating something real. We moved in together after 2 years and started talking about marriage and even having children someday. Sophie would joke about our future children becoming electricians and carrying on the family business. Man, I thought I had everything sorted out. The weird part is that my family liked her at first. Mom was continually calling us over for supper, asking Sophie for assistance with computer issues, or soliciting her advice on house renovations. Even Dad warmed up to her once he realized how much she was contributing to the company's growth. We were gaining larger contracts, doing more commercial work, and establishing a solid reputation in the area. Sophie got along well with Alex too. When I became irritated with his latest unsuccessful attempt, she would defend him, telling me that I should try to understand his point of view better, how growing up unwell might have influenced him. Looking back, I should have recognized that as a red flag, but you know how it is when you really trust someone. You do not want to see the signs. We became engaged after 4 years together. Nothing spectacular. I proposed at home after we finished the massive project we had been working on together. She'd been helping me plan this large electrical renovation for a nearby hospital, staying up late with me to go over blueprints and deal with contractors. It just felt right, as if we were true partners in everything. Around a year ago, things began to change. Alex had spent another chunk of Dad's money trying to launch a cryptocurrency trading business, returned home bankrupt, and Dad offered him a job in our office. just the basics: answering phones, filing papers, and organizing appointments. It should have been simple enough, but Alex always managed to screw it up. Sophie began spending more time at my parents' place, assisting Mom with wedding preparations and such. She stated it was easier to focus on company documents there while Alex was learning the procedures. I was working most days, so it made sense at the time. Following that, everything began to spiral out of control. I began to notice subtle changes about 8 months before everything blew up. Nothing big at first, just minor details that didn't line up. Sophie was spending more time at my parents' house, helping with business matters. She explained that she was educating Alex on our new billing system and assisting Mom with wedding plans. Makes sense, right? I was out on jobs most days, working my tail off to save money for our future. We planned the entire wedding and talked about buying a property. I wanted to do things correctly. But then other things started happening. Sophie changed her phone's password. She has never actually hidden her phone before. We knew each other's passwords. It was no big problem, but she started acting strangely about it. She explained that her banking app required her to update security or something. Whatever, I absolutely trusted her, so I didn't think much of it. Then Alex began acting differently. He began wearing cologne at work. Dude used to turn up half the time in the same clothes as yesterday. He got all these new clothing and started showing up to work on time, which was unusual for him. He was also strangely polite to me, volunteering to stay late at the office and expressing a strong desire to study business. Sophie was talking about him differently. Alex is really getting good at handling the scheduling, or, your brother's actually pretty smart when he applies himself. She'd get angry whenever I complained about his messing something up, and even started taking his side in family disputes. The atmosphere in the office also becomes strange. Janet, our receptionist for the past 15 years, was like a second mother to us. She began giving me these looks while Sophie and Alex were working late together, but whenever I asked what was going on, she would simply say nothing and change the subject. Once, I returned to the office early from a task because we had run out of materials. Sophie and Alex were in the break room, giggling over something. There was nothing clearly wrong, but they both jumped as if they had been caught doing something when I stepped in. Sophie mentioned that they were just going over some invoices around 7 p.m. Right. Sophie seemed to talk less about our future. She used to be quite enthused about wedding planning, looking at houses online, and discussing what kind of family we'd have. Then she became quiet about it all. She claimed she was just anxious about work. The true red flag I missed was when she stopped visiting job sites to check on projects. It used to be our thing. She'd bring lunch, we'd go over plans, and solve problems together, but she was suddenly too busy at work with Alex. We had a large family meal approximately 6 months ago. Sophie was acting funny all night, barely speaking and constantly checking her phone. Alex kept attempting to make inside jokes with her. Sophie snorted with laughter when he mentioned that insane person at work. But when I questioned what was hilarious, they both said, "You had to be there." After dinner, on the way home, I finally brought it up. Sophie remained glancing at her phone. "You okay? You seemed off tonight." "Just tired. Work's been crazy." "Yeah, it seems like you and Alex are getting along better these days." She tightened up but tried to keep it casual. "He's not as bad as you always say. He's actually pretty funny when you get to know him." "Funny enough to make you ignore everyone else at dinner? What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just that you've been different lately. Distant. Always on your phone." She became defensive quickly. "Oh, so I'm not allowed to have my own conversations now? Everything has to be about you?" That threw me off guard. Sophie never spoke to me like that before. "That's not what I said. Just feels like something's changed. Maybe you're just paranoid. I'm tired of you always complaining about Alex. He's trying his best." I recall getting a horrible feeling in my stomach, like if something was seriously wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She had never defended Alex like that before. "Since when are you Team Alex?" "Since I actually got to know him instead of just listening to you bashing him all the time." We drove the rest of the way silently. Man, all the symptoms were there: the protective attitude, the phone, the inside jokes, the way she suddenly thought Alex was fantastic. But you never want to believe someone you absolutely trust could do that to you, especially not your own brother. I recall lying there that night, watching her try to sleep and thinking, nah, I'm just being paranoid. The next several months were just more of the same. Sophie working late, Alex becoming interested in the business, and me being a complete idiot working 12-hour days to save for our future while my brother was stealing my girl right under my nose. Then came the day when everything burst. It was Tuesday. I recall because I was working on a large commercial project that involved rewiring a warehouse. Sophie called about 2 p.m., crying so hard I couldn't hear her. She claimed she needed to speak with me in person and that it was urgent. My immediate impression was that something had happened to her parents. I told my colleagues that I had a family emergency and drove straight home. I discovered her sitting in her car in our driveway. She refused to come inside, instead sitting there gripping the steering wheel as if it was the only thing holding her together. I sat in the passenger seat, waiting for her to say anything. "I'm pregnant," she explained. For a few seconds, all I felt was happiness. We discussed starting a family after the wedding, and suddenly it was happening. I started talking about how we'd work things out, and how we could move the wedding up if necessary. She kept crying. "There's more," she said, choking. "It might not be yours." Everything within me became still. My brain initially refused to accept it, as if I needed to repeat it to ensure that I had heard her correctly. Might not be mine? My voice sounded strange, as if it weren't even mine. Who else would it be? I paused. It all connected at once: the late nights, the sudden secrecy with her phone, and the strange discomfort whenever I mentioned it. "No." I gazed at her, waiting for her to deny it and tell me I was wrong. She did not. "It's not him," she sighed. My hands tightened into fists. "Sophie," my voice was strong and demanding. "Tell me it's not Alex." She made a broken sound in her throat. "It wasn't supposed to happen." I gave a harsh laugh, but there was no comedy in it. "Oh right, you just tripped and fell into my brother's bed." "It wasn't like that," she replied hastily. "It was one time." I shut her off. One time? My head was pounding. "Tell me the truth, nothing but quiet." "How long?" Her breathing sounded unsteady. 3 months. Maybe 4. I had to press my hands on my knees to keep myself steady. "Does he know?" My voice was tight and controlled. She nodded. "I told him yesterday." "That's when I realized I had to tell you too." I stared at her, as if she wanted me to be relieved she had finally decided to come honest. I got out of the car because I needed air. She followed me, attempting to explain how it wasn't planned, how horrible they both felt, and how they had ended it weeks before. All I could think about was them laughing in the break room during those late-night work sessions. "Were you ever going to tell me if you weren't pregnant?" She did not respond to that. It explained all I needed to know. I hopped into my truck and drove directly to my folks' place. I found Alex in the office, doing business as usual. When he saw my face, he knew I knew. "Listen bro, I can explain." I don't remember what happened next. It's all a blur, but I recall him on the ground with blood gushing from his nose. Dad and 2 of our employees are pushing me away from him. Alex began ranting about how I was crazy, how Sophie had come onto him first, and how they were in love. In love? My own brother, the guy who'd seen me plan my future with this lady and sat there at Sunday dinners knowing exactly what he was doing. Dad got between us, tried to calm everyone down, and told us we had to address this like adults. That's when Alex released the next bombshell. "She's having my baby." "You can't just ignore that." Dad's face turned white. I guess he wasn't aware of that portion yet. Mom began crying. Janet grabbed her purse and walked away. I found out later that she quit that day, saying she couldn't work for people like them. I glanced at my father and said, "He's your problem now. I'm done." Dad attempted to stop me, saying, "Son, wait. We can figure this out. Family is family." I told him Alex ceased being my family the moment he touched my fiancée. I walked out and haven't returned since. Sophie was still at our house when I arrived home. She was sitting on the couch, crying, after packing her bags. "I never meant to hurt you," she explained. "It just got complicated." I informed her she had 24 hours to grab her belongings and leave. I didn't care where she went. Block my number, lose my address. "What about the baby?" she inquired. "Better hope it's Alex's, because if it's mine, we're doing a DNA test and going through lawyers." She tried to speak more, but I walked away. I drove to my friend Mike's apartment and stayed for a few days while she moved out. So, after everything happened, I remained at my friend Mike's house for approximately a week. I turned off my phone. I simply needed to comprehend everything. Mike is a real one. Didn't try to offer counsel or anything, simply let me crash. When I eventually put my phone back on, I had about 50 missed calls, the majority of which were from my parents, some from Sophie, and a couple from Alex. This dude has some nerve. But I only listened to Mom's messages. She was crying in the majority of them, pleading with me to come talk to Dad, who claimed to have a solution. I should have known Dad's answer would be manipulative nonsense, but I went anyway, primarily because Mom sounded so distraught. Walking into that house was strange. I found everyone in the living room. Mom looked like she hadn't slept for days. Dad sat in his normal recliner, looking serious, as if he were preparing to give one of his lectures. Alex was also there, with a lovely bruised nose. I'm not going to lie, that felt amazing to see. Dad cleared his throat and smacked me with a diamond. Son, I've been thinking about how to resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. Since you're clearly not willing to work things out with Sophie, and given her condition, I think it makes sense for her and Alex to get married. I actually laughed. I literally laughed in his face. But he wasn't finished. Furthermore, since they'll be starting a family, I think it's appropriate for Alex to take over the business. With Sophie's experience running the office and Alex learning the trade, they could. Alex learning the trade? I interrupted him. He can't even wire a account outlet without supervision. Dad had the same look he typically does when someone disturbs him. Language, and your brother has shown real interest in learning. In fact, I want you to train him. Guys, I've lost it. I started laughing again, but it was the kind of insane chuckle you get when something is so twisted up that you can't process it. Let me get this straight, I remarked. You want me to train the brother who screwed my fiancée to take over the business I helped build, while they're married and raising a kid that might be mine? Are you actually insane? Mom began crying again. Alex simply sat there, staring at the floor like a coward. Dad took out his final card. This business is still in my name. If you won't help your brother, maybe you should find somewhere else to work. That's when I realized all those years of hard effort had been for nothing. All of my hard work, the business I brought in, and the reputation I earned were insignificant in comparison to precious Alex's latest blunder. I just got up and headed to the door. Mom tried to stop me, but I just said, I'm done. Good luck with your new golden team. Alex eventually spoke up. Bro, wait. I turned around and simply stated, call me bro again, and I'll break more than your nose. Dad raged at me about loyalty and second chances. I did not even look back. The next day, I began calling all of our big clients, including those with whom I had personal relationships. I informed them that I was departing and offered some other reputable contractors they could work with. Dad called, yelling about how I was attempting to damage the business. I told him I was only informing my clients that I would no longer be handling their jobs. It's not my responsibility if they don't want to work with his new ideal team. Alex and Sophie genuinely agreed to the entire thing. They married at the courthouse 2 weeks later, as if it were a love story rather than a total betrayal. Dad even backed them up, giving them a down payment on a house as a reward for what they'd done. Meanwhile, I was left standing amid the ruins of all I believed I knew. There was no apology, no meaningful consequences, only the expectation that I move on while they played happy family. So, I did. I walked away from it all. I took a position with one of our old competitors, where my work was respected rather being treated as an afterthought. Better income, genuine recognition, and best of all, no family drama. I pushed everything into starting over and developing my own reputation. I even acquired my master electrician's license, something Dad always claimed I wasn't ready for. Turns out, I was more than prepared. I just had to get out of his shadow to prove it. I didn't hear much about the family business for approximately 4 months. Mom would occasionally text me, but I requested her not to inform me about Alex or Sophie. I didn't need the stress in my life. Then, last week, I received a call from Mom at approximately 11 p.m. She started crying again, claiming Dad needed to talk to me right away. I almost hung up, but she seemed quite disturbed. Please, she asked. I know you have every right to say no, but we're about to lose everything. I was truly curious and remained on the line. Dad came on, and his voice was different, not the typical I know everything tone. He sounded broken. It turns out that allowing Alex to run the business was exactly the nightmare I predicted. This genius screwed up 3 large commercial jobs so horribly that one customer has threatened to sue us for code violations. I'm talking about fundamental things like incorrect gauge wiring, missing ground wires, and junction boxes put without covers, mistakes that may practically burn a building down. And things get better. Instead of recruiting qualified electricians, he appointed his drinking buddy from college as chief electrician. The guy's whole electrical experience involved changing light bulbs in his flat. No license, no credentials, and probably couldn't tell the difference between a voltage meter and a screwdriver. They run a real professional operation there. Then there's the monetary side. Alex reportedly neglected to pay their liability insurance. Consider this. You're in the electrical company. They'd lose everything with one accident or fire. But, hey, why spend money on frivolous things like insurance when you can pocket the cash instead? Because that's exactly what he was doing. Accepting cash payments from consumers while conveniently failing to record them in the books. And the financial genius had been taking out loans against the firm without informing Dad. Multiple loans. We're talking significant money here. And the best part? Nobody can figure out where all that money went. Nothing in his bank account, nothing in his investments, it all vanished like magic. I'm betting his new automobile and the luxury clothes he's been wearing could be a hint. It's almost impressive how thoroughly he ruined everything in just a few months. Dad spent 30 years building this firm, and Alex virtually destroyed it in less than half a year. That's what happens when you give over a profitable business to someone whose greatest accomplishment was becoming the beer pong team captain in college. Dad finally found out when their insurance was canceled, and he began looking into the books. Alex had been concealing all of the difficulties by tampering with the papers, as Sophie had taught him during all of those late hours at work. Most of their seasoned members quit. I can't blame them. Alex treated them poorly, and checks began to bounce. Janet, our previous receptionist, evidently tried to notify Dad about strange activity in the accounts months ago, but he refused to listen. Dad's voice was shaking as he told me all of this, and then he slapped me with, "Son, I need you to come back, help me fix this. We can make you majority owner, give you full control." I told him that I needed to think about it. He started to become desperate. "Please, we're going to lose everything, the business, the house, everything I built. Your mother, she's not handling this well." Then he played his last card. Alex and Sophie split up. She left last week, just disappeared. Left a note saying not to contact her. The baby. We don't even know where she is. Alex wasn't daddy material after all. My response was, "Not my circus, not my monkeys anymore." Dad began with his typical guilt trip about family and devotion. I cut him off. "Remember when I begged you not to give the business to Alex? When I told you he'd run it into the ground? What was it you said? Oh yeah, family is family. Well, this is your family's mess now." Mom called back, weeping about how they might be homeless soon. That hit hard. Mom did not deserve any of this. She's the only one who's ever attempted to keep the family together, the only one who hasn't taken sides, even when she probably should have. I told her she may come and stay with me at any moment. It's just her. Not Dad. Not Alex. "I can't leave your father," she explained. I exhaled. "Then that's your choice, Mom, but my door is only open for you." It sucked knowing she would never go through it. A few days later, Sophie texted me. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need help. The baby's yours. I got the test results. Alex took all my money and disappeared. Please, I don't have anywhere else to go." I read it, stared at it, and set my phone down. Did not respond. Not going to. But damn if it didn't sit there like a stone in my gut, like a punch I knew was coming but couldn't handle. It should have meant something. It should have been life-changing. But all I felt was tiredness, like if I had finally climbed out of this mess just to have it reach back and try to drag me under again. And for the first time, I didn't know what to do. Dad showed up at my place last night while I was still trying to figure out what was going on. There was no notice, simply standing there when I arrived home from work. Looking grungy, wearing an old jacket I recall from my childhood. Hadn't shaven in what seemed like weeks. First thing I noticed was that he was driving Mom's old Civic rather than his truck. Later, they discovered that they needed to sell his truck to pay off some of the business's debts. "Can we talk?" he requested, not demanding as usual. He truly sounded exhausted. I invited him in because I really wanted him to see how I was doing without his assistance. "My new house is quite nice. I received it following my last promotion. Nothing spectacular, but it's mine. I earned it myself." He stood in my living room, looking bewildered, as if he didn't know how to communicate with me other than by delivering commands. Finally, he sat down and began pouring everything. The business is essentially dead. They're being sued by 2 business clients over Alex's rubbish work. After that, the majority of their home customers abandoned them, complaining about jobs that were left unfinished. "The bank is coming for the house next month." "I should have listened to you," he explained. This is the first time I've ever heard him confess to being incorrect about anything. I told him that was good to hear, but it was late. Then he took out this folder. Inside, there was papers to transfer 100% ownership of the company to me with no strings attached. "You can save it," he replied. "You always knew what you were doing." I was just too proud to see it. Do you know what is crazy? 6 months ago, this would have been everything I wanted. All that validation, finally having power, and Dad admitting I was correct. But while glancing at those papers, I wondered, what happened to Alex? Dad's face simply crumpled. Alex cleared out their savings account last week and disappeared. Left this note about needing to find himself or some BS. Classic Alex, causes a mess and then flees from the consequences. He's still your brother, Dad explained calmly. Number, you replied. He stopped being my brother the day he decided family loyalty meant nothing to him. Sound familiar? That struck him hard. Good. He began telling me how he could help me restore the firm, how we could collaborate and be a genuine family again. I had to laugh. Dad, you're not hearing me. I don't want the business, I don't want your help. I'm done. But this is your legacy too. Everything we built, everything I built, you gave to Alex, remember? You chose him even after he slept with my fiancée. Now you get to live with that choice. He tried guilt-tripping me again about Mom's anguish over the family falling apart. I told him the same thing as before. She's welcome here anytime, just her. She won't leave me, he said? Then that's her choice, and living with the consequences of your actions, that's yours. He sat for a long time before asking quietly, where did I go wrong? I wanted to lay it all out. All the years of favoritism, the continual justifications for Alex, how he discarded someone who genuinely cared about the business for someone who regarded it as a piggy bank to rob. So what's the point? You didn't go wrong, Dad. You got exactly what you always wanted, Alex being in charge. How's that working out? He left shortly thereafter. He looked around 20 years older walking out than when he walked in. I received a text from Mom this morning. They'll be moving in with her sister in Ohio next month. Dad is going to try to find a job there. She asked me once more if I would contemplate assisting them in their stay here. I informed her that my offer stood. She is welcome to stay with me at any moment, but I am tired of burning myself on fire to keep others warm. Sophie still sends texts concerning the baby. I advised her to call my lawyer. I haven't heard from Alex, do not expect to. You know what's weird? I imagined that witnessing them lose everything would be satisfying, as if karma was punishing them for what they had done to me. But honestly, I don't feel anything. Nor pleased, nor sad, just finished. I began dating someone new last month, taking it slowly. She asked about my family, and I simply stated that we are not close. Maybe someday I'll tell her the whole tale, but for now, I'm focused on creating my own life. There is no drama, no poisonous familial BS, and no attempting to gain favor that never comes. I informed Sophie that everything would now be handled by lawyers. Will I be present for my child? Yeah, I am not my brother. I do not abandon my responsibilities. But Sophie destroyed that bridge. We'll work out custody and support through the courts. She made her choices, and now she must live with the consequences, just like everyone else in this mess. For the time being, I'm simply trying to keep my head straight, focusing on work, my new relationship, and creating something unique to me. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about how messed up it is that my children will be born into all of this drama, but you can't undo other people's mistakes. You can only strive to follow your conscience. Sometimes the best vengeance is simply living well. This is the last section, guys. Thank you for following along. Writing it all out truly helped me sort through some of my thoughts. Edit 2. Since people keep asking, yes, if Sophie can show the baby exists and is mine, I will step forward, but only through legal means. No direct interaction. My brother demanded $50,000 from me for his broken relationship after his fiancée confessed she loved me. My brother Matt, who is 1 year older than me, was engaged to Kate, his ex-fiancée. They seemed like a good match, and it appeared that they would have a wonderful life together. However, things didn't go as planned, and their relationship ended in large part due to me. Before you pass judgment, I need to describe what actually happened. Matt and I have always been close, and we even attended the same college, where Matt met Kate. They struck it off fast and began dating seriously. Kate spent a lot of time with Matt and me in our college apartment. It didn't take long until she and I became pals. Initially, I was pleased to see how much she cared for my brother, and I admired her as his girlfriend. That's how I've always seen her, as Matt's girl, with the potential to join our family eventually. But, over time, I started to notice things about Kate that made me uneasy. She was frequently overly nice with me in ways that did not seem quite acceptable. I dismissed it at first, assuming it was her way of bonding with me as a potential sister-in-law. However, numerous ex-girlfriends of mine would bring up Kate in conversation. They told me how uncomfortable she made them feel when they came to visit me. According to them, Kate would act possessive of me around them, asking a lot of questions, which made no sense given that she was with Matt and not me. I never paid much attention to these statements, supposing they were exaggerated or simply didn't want to believe them. But as more individuals brought it up, I realized there could be something to it. I once dated a girl named Sarah, and everything went well between us. However, she abruptly ended our relationship. I was caught off guard and had no idea what had gone wrong. I eventually discovered the truth. Kate had ruined our relationship. When I brought Sarah over to our apartment, Kate would continuously mock her, put her down, and even bully her behind my back. Sarah later informed me that Kate made her feel unwelcome and insignificant, as if she did not belong in my life. That was not all. Kate went so far as to lie to Sarah, claiming that I was cheating on her with other people. That was completely false, and the worst part was that Sarah believed her without speaking with me first. It ached to know Kate had purposefully wrecked our relationship. When I questioned Kate, she acknowledged lying but showed no remorse. Instead, she excused her actions by claiming that she didn't think Sarah was right for me and was attempting to protect me from a relationship she didn't believe was good enough. She presented it as if she was doing me a favor, but it did not feel that way. It seemed like an invasion, as if she had crossed a line she wasn't supposed to cross. This was not an isolated instance. Another time, I was dating a girl named Emily and things were getting serious. During Christmas, I decided to bring her home for the first time to meet my family. Matt brought Kate along, as he normally did. I had high hopes for the holiday, thinking it would be an opportunity for Emily to connect with everyone. Instead, it became a nightmare. Kate made Emily feel unwelcome from the beginning. She would isolate her from family gatherings, making her feel like an outcast while pretending she didn't notice. Emily later told me that she thought Kate despised her and treated me with jealousy. She followed me about all day, never allowing Emily or myself any space or solitude. Eventually, Emily couldn't handle it any longer, and we split up. These experiences made me feel stuck. I wasn't sure if Kate had feelings for me because she had never expressed them. I also didn't know how to handle this without producing a schism between my brother and me or inciting extra family turmoil. But, at the same time, I couldn't ignore how Kate's actions affected my life and relationships. It was evident that something was wrong, and it was only a matter of time before things broke down. Then came my birthday. Kate handed me a gold chain with the letter K on it. It looked quite pricey. At first, I wasn't sure how to react. Giving me a necklace with her initials on it seemed weird, even inappropriate. This was not the type of gift you'd anticipate from your brother's fiancé. It seemed more like something couples would exchange. I nervously quipped that she must have confused the receiver, as the necklace appeared to be a gift for my brother Matt rather than me. Kate's face flushed with shame, and she explained how she had personalized the necklace particularly for me. She said she wanted me to wear it so I wouldn't get approached by every girl on the street. I made a nasty expression at her comment, and she must have seen it because she fell into tears and fled out of the room without saying anything. The entire situation felt awkward and uncomfortable, and I had no idea what to do. Later, I summoned the confidence to tell my brother about my concerns, hoping he'd understand why Kate's gift had upset me. But, to my amazement, he ignored it completely. He pretended it wasn't a huge deal for Kate to give me anything like that, telling me that Kate loved me like family and I shouldn't overthink things. When I brought up Kate's previous occurrences and strange conduct, my brother replied that she was simply a highly protective person and that her behavior meant nothing else. To avoid unnecessary drama, I decided to drop the topic with him. He was clearly delusional. But, following the incident, I made a concerted attempt to distance myself from Kate. I was nice and respectful whenever I was around her, but I avoided spending time alone with her or conversing with her for longer than necessary. I assumed that providing that distance would help create clear boundaries and that she would finally leave me alone. When my brother and Kate graduated, I expected to spend less time with Kate, but that did not happen. Kate began phoning and texting me practically daily. Even when I ignored her calls and responded briefly to her texts, she didn't seem to receive the message. Her persistence perplexed me, and I couldn't understand why Mom continued to seek so much attention from me when her priority should have been my brother. Then Daisy entered my life. I met her at a party through common friends, and as soon as we started talking, I realized she was unique. Daisy is the love of my life, and I'm so grateful we met. Kate's behavior at family functions followed the same old, unpleasant pattern every time she met Daisy. She would try to bully Daisy in the same manner she had bullied my ex-partners. But this time, something was different. I was older, more self-aware, and far less tolerant of her shenanigans. Whenever Kate crossed a line, I stood up for Daisy and warned her to back off. But I also have to admit that Daisy does not require my protection. She is strong, confident, and refuses to accept disrespect. One event stood out in particular. Kate chose a seafood restaurant for our family meal despite knowing Daisy was terribly sensitive to shellfish. She obviously wants Daisy to sit out, expecting she would feel ostracized and embarrassed. When I discovered what was going on, I absolutely refused to attend the dinner. Daisy did not remain silent either. She informed everyone that Kate had purposefully chosen a place where she would be unable to eat. Kate attempted to play innocent, stating she had no idea Daisy's allergy was such a major deal. When it didn't work, she became rude, insulting Daisy by claiming that only weak people had such allergies and accusing her of faking them for attention. That was the breaking moment. My parents recognized Kate's callous behavior and called her out on it. I also insisted Kate apologize to Daisy on the spot. She seemed outraged at me for siding with Daisy, as if she expected me not to support my own spouse. She whispered an unconvincing apology. In the end, my dad, Daisy, and I went out to another restaurant while Kate and my brother ate at the seafood restaurant. Daisy and I carefully avoided Kate following this incident. Fortunately, my parents were on the same page. They saw Kate's odd conduct and did not pressure me to involve her in my plans. They understood and supported my decisions, making things easier for me. My brother Matt was the only person who remained to support Kate. He would regularly approach me and plead her case. He told me how Kate was hurt that I wasn't spending more time with her, and how Daisy had pushed a wedge between us. He'd reminisce about the good old days, attempting to persuade me to visit him and Kate more often so the three of us could hang out like we used to. But I had no desire to turn back the clock. I made it obvious to Matt that Daisy was a vital part of my life right now, and she was not leaving. I told him that if Kate couldn't accept Daisy or recognize her role in my life, there was no place for me in their small group. I wasn't going to place Kate's sentiments over my partner's well-being, or jeopardize the life I was creating with Daisy. It was a difficult conversation, but it needed to be had. My brother and I developed a strained connection over time. When my brother got engaged to Kate, he invited me and Daisy to an engagement party with the rest of the family. I wasn't looking forward to seeing Kate again, but for my brother's sake, I decided to set my sentiments aside for one night. Little did I know, that night would be a disaster that none of us would ever forget. Kate stared at me from the time we arrived. She approached me and offered me a lengthy, prolonged hug, which made me uneasy. I observed that she was drinking extensively all night. She was noisy, emotional, and obsessively focused on me and Daisy. She continued to flirt with me, stroking my arm needlessly and making improper remarks. It was awkward, to say the least. I did my best to avoid her without raising a disturbance, but my attempts to separate myself just made her angrier. Matt stood up to make a toast to commemorate their engagement. Kate pulled the microphone from his hand in the middle of his address, as the entire crowd watched. Kate began a rambling and disjointed confession. She told everyone present that she had been living a lie for years. She appeared inebriated, and her speech was slurred. She admitted in front of our entire family and friends that she had always been in love with me, not Matt. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. My brother's face became pale, his expression a mix of shock and sadness. I could feel my pulse pounding in my chest as the horror of what she was saying set in. Kate, unconcerned about the ruckus she was causing, resumed her inebriated confession. She explained that she had tolerated remaining with Matt all these years because it was the only way she could be close to me. Kate went on to express her jealousy of Daisy, claiming that she was the reason I had stopped spending time with her. Then, to everyone's amazement, she begged me to leave Daisy. She stated she wanted us to run away together and have a wonderful life as a couple. The desperate tone in her voice was frightening. The room was stuck in startled quiet, except for Kate's drunken tears. Fortunately, Kate's sister, who was also attending the party, stepped in. She hurriedly pulled Kate away from the microphone and attempted to settle the situation, but Kate was not finished yet. She continued to wail and scream as her sister took her out of the room, shouting things at me like, "You're the love of my life, and don't let her take you from me." I wasn't sure where to look or what to say. My brother stood there, absolutely crushed, as our family and friends watched, shocked and disbelieving. I was appalled and ashamed by what had occurred. The consequences of this occurrence were terrible. Matt was devastated by Kate's public confession and betrayal and ended their engagement immediately. He severed all links with her and refused to see her again after that night. While I completely supported his decision to terminate things with Kate, I didn't expect him to cut me off as well. Matt refused to speak with me after that, no matter how hard I tried. He ignored my calls and messages, and he did not respond even when our parents tried to interfere. He stopped attending family gatherings, barely communicated with anyone, and provided no updates on his life. He has had almost no communication with any of us in the past 5 years. He was even absent on the most important day of my life, my wedding to Daisy. My parents occasionally receive a few updates from him, but that's about it. We have no idea why he cut us off so totally, But we understand his need for space, even if it breaks our hearts. That is why, when my phone rang this week and I saw Matt's name on the screen, I was taken aback. I hadn't heard from him in years, and I couldn't believe he was reaching out now. When I answered the phone, the first few moments were awkward. We hadn't spoken in a long time, and it was hard to know where to begin. But I was just glad that my older brother had finally contacted me. I missed him more than I knew. Matt informed me he was doing okay and eventually revealed why he was reaching out. He informed me that he was getting married in a few months. The news surprised me, but I was truly thrilled for him. After everything he'd been through, it felt like a new beginning in his life. I congratulated him cordially and expressed how pleased I was to hear the news. Curious, I inquired whether he planned to invite our parents, Daisy, and me to the wedding. It had been a long time since we'd all been together, and I saw this as an ideal opportunity for reconciliation. Matt confirmed that he was actually inviting us, which reassured me. It seemed like a bridge was finally being repaired. But then he said something that really took me off guard. He simply stated that, while I had been asked to his wedding, I could not come empty-handed. At first, I chuckled, believing he was making a light-hearted joke about wedding presents. I promised him that I would get him and his fiancée a wonderful gift. But Matt quickly clarified that wasn't what he meant. He went on to claim that what he really wanted from me was $50,000. I froze, taken by surprise. $50,000 for a wedding gift? For a second, I suspected he was still joking, but the severity in his voice dispelled any doubt. I urged him to clarify, to see if I had misunderstood, but Matt insisted. He informed me that this was something I owed him after breaking his trust years before. He argued that paying him this money was the only way to mend our friendship. I pressed him further, confused and shocked, to attempt to figure out what he was saying. What trust had I broken? How had I harmed him? That's when Matt mentioned Kate. He described in great detail how his ex-fiancée proclaimed her love for me at their engagement party. He told me how ashamed and deceived he felt that night, standing in front of his family and friends while his life fell apart. Matt blamed me for his disgrace and emotional agony. He claimed that I should have known Kate's feelings all along and done anything to avoid her disclosure. He criticized me for not setting stricter limits with her and for failing to recognize the warning signs sooner. Matt told me that the day Kate professed her love to me, he experienced a significant emotional and social loss. He said that the incident harmed his reputation, broke his confidence, and left him emotionally wounded. In his mind, the $50,000 was more than just a wedding present. It was compensation for the agony and humiliation he felt I had caused him. He saw it as an opportunity for me to take responsibility and make things right. Obviously, I informed Matt that I couldn't do what he asked. I informed him that he was insane for ever suggesting something like this. But Matt persisted in giving me a few days to rethink, implying that if I did not pay him the money, our relationship would be gone forever. Honestly, this feels like an ultimatum, and it has left me angry and very saddened. My wife believes my brother has lost his mind, but some of my cousins agree with Matt. They believe I should at least consider compromise and compensating him, as he has suffered greatly as a result of my actions. Okay, Reddit, here's an update. Matt's demand has stunned my parents just as much as it has me. When I told them what he had said, they couldn't believe that after years of silence and no attempts to communicate, Matt had simply come out to demand $50,000 from me. They are upset on my behalf, especially given the emotional toll the issue with Kate took on me and Daisy. My folks are fully on my side. We are now preparing a proper sit-down with Matt to resolve these concerns once and for all. The idea is to figure out what's going on with him and grasp his motives. We want to know if this $50,000 demand is truly what he believes will resolve our differences, or if something deeper is fueling his hatred. I'm also hoping that this discussion will allow Matt to see things from my perspective. I want him to understand that I was never the cause of what happened between him and Kate, and that blaming me is not the answer to his sorrow. To everyone who is wondering if I flirted with Kate or somehow led her on, let me be very clear. I was never drawn to her from the start. I respected her because she was important to Matt. Any feelings she had for me were totally her own. I never gave her any cause to believe I had anything more than platonic respect for her. Kate repeatedly crossed boundaries, despite my attempts to remove myself. She drove away several ex-girlfriends of mine by lying, bullying, and being bossy. She became envious and hateful when Daisy entered my life, and she made it her purpose to mistreat her whenever possible. Matt wasn't immune to her actions either. He noticed how uncomfortable she made me and how antagonistic she was to Daisy and my ex-partners, but he never discussed it with Kate. He didn't confront her or try to improve the situation. That stings also because I believe he knew deep down that what she was doing was wrong, but he decided to look the other way rather than confront her. It's as if he expected me to simply tolerate her antics for the sake of peace, no matter how much stress they imposed on me. Also, what kind of grown woman gets drunk and professes her emotions for her fiancé's brother at their engagement party? That moment was both mortifying and awful. She showed no respect for her relationship with Matt, for me, or for Daisy. I'm pleased Matt and Kate are no longer together because I believe this inappropriate dynamic would have persisted indefinitely. Update 2. It has been a month since my last update. Last week, after much back and forth, my parents, Daisy, and I finally met with Matt. He had made numerous reasons not to meet us, dragging his feet and avoiding any meaningful talk. My parents, however, remained strong. They insisted that we clear the air and strive to reconstruct what was destroyed. Initially, the meeting was difficult. Matt was defensive, and he began by admitting that he had been nursing a grudge against me all along. He stated that Kate's behavior caught him off guard, which contributed to his estrangement from me. He also began accusing me of having an affair with Kate on the side, implying that there might be more to the story than I or Kate had revealed. The charge stunned me, and I told him unequivocally that I would never do anything like that to him. I had always respected the bounds of his relationship with Kate, even when she was acting inappropriately. I wasn't about to let him accuse me of anything so ridiculous without a fight. Daisy also spoke out for me. She explained to Matt that Kate's activities had harmed the entire family, not just him, and that we had all been touched by her behavior. She reminded Matt of all the times he had picked Kate over me, despite her toxic behavior, and told him that he should have seen this coming much sooner than I did. Daisy told him bluntly that what he was doing to me was emotional manipulation, and that he shouldn't punish me for what had happened when I, too, was a victim like him. He needed to move on from his past. Daisy's powerful, clear voice drew Matt in and made him listen. I also informed Matt how many times I'd tried to contact him over the years. I emphasized that I could have discussed these issues with him years ago. I didn't shut him out. He cut us off without explanation. This is when Matt informed me that he was too humiliated to face me back then, that everything had been so overwhelming for him, and that he believed cutting us off was the best move for his mental health. While I understood his desire for space at the time, I couldn't figure out why, after all these years, he was asking me for money. That's when Matt revealed the true reason. He stated that the $50,000 he was requesting represented the amount of money he had spent on Kate over the years, including trips, presents, and any other costs incurred throughout their relationship. He believed that because Kate fell in love with me and I was the reason their relationship ended, I owed him the money as reparation. It was as if he was attempting to rationalize the absurdity of the situation by presenting it as a debt I needed to repay. I sat there in full shock as Matt continued to rationalize his ludicrous request. I told Matt straight up that he was only looking for ways to vent his rage on me. His focus should have been on Kate, the person who made those decisions and caused all of the anguish, not on me. If he wanted recompense, he should have asked her to pay rather than me. I was not the one who behaved inappropriately. I was not the one who lied or crossed boundaries. Kate was the one who made the issue, but I was getting blamed for it. Matt seemed to be grabbing at straws, blaming everyone save the person who had genuinely mistreated him. My mother was also unable to keep back. She informed Matt that asking me for money was extremely inappropriate and that he should stop acting like a crazy person. My father agreed with her. My brother turned on my parents and began accusing them of always favoring me. "You both should stay out of this matter. You always support him no matter what," he cried. "Kate left me for him, and you two are taking his side. He's clearly the golden child. You both always favor him no matter what." My parents, taken by surprise by his behavior, attempted to calm him down. My father spoke first, his voice firm despite the tension in the room. "Matt, that's not true. We've always loved you both the same, and we've always supported you through everything. We've never picked sides, and we never will. It's simply that asking your brother for money would not make things better between you two, especially when he hasn't done anything to you." Matt's face twisted with rage, and he shot back at me. "I blame you for Kate leaving me, and I will continue to do so. If I don't pay him, he has nothing else to say to me." He also informed my parents that because they had chosen my side, he was done with them. "I'll never speak to any of you again. I will not let any of you meet my wife or future children. You're all dead to me starting today." He stormed out of the room, leaving us all stunned in silence. My parents tried to call after him, but it was futile. Matt hasn't contacted us since, and I've been attempting to reach him, but he appears to have blocked me. Update 3. It's been 4 months since Matt stopped talking to us, and I've stopped trying to reach out to him. It was difficult at first, and I kept wondering if I could have said something differently, if there was anything else I could have done to save our relationship, but after all this time, I've accepted that I can't change what happened, and I can't force someone to talk to me if they're not ready. My parents miss Matt, of course, and love him, but they've accepted Matt's decision. If he ever wishes to contact them, they'll be there, but for now, they've stopped pushing it. I've gotten a few DMs from people asking if Matt was trying to get me to pay him money for his wedding expenses, rather than it being about Kate. To be honest, I'm not sure what Matt's true intentions were. If it was genuinely about him needing financial help for his wedding or some other situation, I might have been more willing to discuss it and see if there was a way to help, but that wasn't the case. He made it clear that it was about me somehow. That is something I just can't wrap my head around. At the end of the day, the money wasn't the issue. It was Matt's misplaced anger and complete lack of understanding about what actually happened. I don't think Matt was thinking clearly, and I've accepted that I can't change his mind. Daisy and I are doing well, and I am grateful every day to have such a strong woman by my side. She is now pregnant, and we are excited to become parents soon. I found out that my husband has spent all our savings and hasn't saved anything while I've been covering major expenses. My husband, 26 male, and I, 27 female, have been married for almost 2 years. Tonight, we had the worst fight we've ever had, and I'm seriously considering spending some time apart. We're both hardworking and financially stable, probably considered upper middle or upper class for our age. We paid for our wedding ourselves, and 4 years ago, we bought and renovated our own home. Money has never really been an issue in our relationship until recently. One of the reasons we've done so well is because we've always been diligent about saving. When we were aggressively saving for our wedding and home, we put away 30% of every paycheck. After the wedding, we agreed to a more manageable 20% savings rate to build up our emergency fund and plan for the future, kids, a new house, a new car, etc. I've stuck to that commitment. In fact, when my husband's car died unexpectedly, I covered the full cost of a replacement without needing a car payment. When our HVAC system failed, I paid for that too. Despite these big expenses, I've still managed to keep up my savings and have a solid emergency fund. Tonight, I found out my husband has saved nothing. We've always had a system. His steady paycheck covers our monthly bills, and since I freelance, my income goes toward bigger expenses like student loan payments and unexpected costs. It's worked well, or so I thought. When I asked him why he hasn't saved anything, his excuse was that he's always paying off the credit card, which, for the record, only he uses. I went through our budget, and based on his income, he should have at least $3,000 left over every month after covering expenses. So I asked, where is that money going? He had no answer. So I checked his statements, and what I found was infuriating. Nothing that suggests cheating, gambling, or anything extreme, but reckless, obscene spending. We've had serious conversations about his spending before, and almost a year ago, I made it very clear that he needed to stick to our financial plan. Not only did he break that promise, but he's also somehow spent more than he earns, dipping into our savings. I'm ambitious and goal-driven. I dream big, and we've always talked about our future, where we see ourselves in 5 or 10 years. He's been especially eager to start trying for a baby, and while I've been on the fence, I recently came around to the idea. Until tonight, when I realized we have almost no savings. Now, the timeline for having a child. Delayed. The plan to move out of a town we both hate? Out the window. I feel completely blindsided and betrayed. He's made multiple promises he hasn't kept, and when I confronted him, his solution was to put half of his yearly bonus into savings, even though we already agreed that bonus would go toward paying off his massive student loans. At this point, I don't just feel disappointed, I feel disrespected. I don't understand why he went behind my back like this or why he thought I wouldn't notice. I've lost so much trust in him, and I don't know how to move forward from here. Would time apart help? Can trust even be rebuilt after something like this? I'm at a complete loss. TLDR. My husband, 26 million, and I, 27 female, have always prioritized saving for our future, but tonight I discovered he has saved nothing while I've been covering major expenses. He makes enough to save at least $3,000 a month, but instead, he's been recklessly spending and even dipping into our savings. This isn't the first time we've had this issue, and I feel completely betrayed. Our future plans, having a baby, moving, are now on hold. I don't know if I can trust him anymore and am considering time apart. Where do I go from here? Update. I wanted to come back and give an update since a lot of people had strong opinions about this. First off, my husband is not some reckless mooch, and this isn't a case of me supporting him while he blows through money. He actually covers most of our monthly bills, while I handle the bigger but less frequent expenses like quarterly and annual payments. That setup works for us since my income isn't the same every month. He's also an incredibly generous person. He loves picking up the tab for friends, buying gifts just to make people smile, and always putting others first. That generosity is one of the things I love most about him, but when you aren't keeping track, it adds up fast. And for those assuming I don't make real money because I run my own business and do freelance work, this is my first year going full-time instead of working a 9 to 5 and then grinding on my business at night. I wouldn't have had the courage to do that without him, and I never would have made the leap if I didn't have a partner with a steady paycheck, even though my business has been doing really well. That said, I know I failed as a partner too. He wasn't upfront with me when he started struggling to pay off his credit cards, and while he absolutely should have told me, I should have checked in more too. I thought he was spending the way he was because he was still able to while keeping up with our savings. Instead, he was dipping into our savings to cover his credit cards, and instead of telling me, he tried to handle it himself. He knows that's not okay, but I also need to make sure he feels comfortable coming to me before things get to this point again. To clear up a few things. No, he is not trying to trap me with a baby. We both want kids. It's just about timing. No, I am not unemployed. I run a successful business and do freelance work. Just because I don't get paid on a bi-weekly schedule doesn't mean I don't make good money. Yes, small purchases add up fast. Lunches out, spotting friends, video games, gifts for family, random Amazon orders. It all snowballed into $3,000 a month before he even realized what was happening. Moving forward, we agreed to close most of his credit cards, put his full paycheck into our joint account instead of just half so we both have visibility on spending, and stick to a firm budget that still gives him personal spending money. We haven't decided yet if we'll fully merge everything, but we are going to be a lot more open and accountable with each other. At the end of the day, this isn't a deal breaker for me. I love my husband and I know he loves me. We both want this to work, and we are both putting in the effort to make sure it does. Thanks to everyone who gave helpful advice. Hopefully, this is the last time we ever have to have this fight. I had a kidney infection, but my husband lied about being stuck at work, and when I called his coworker, I found out he hadn't even left. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, 32M, for 3 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter together. Up until recently, I thought I could count on him when I truly needed him. But last week, he proved me completely wrong. I had been feeling off for a couple of days, fatigued, nauseous, just generally unwell. Then one morning, I woke up with a fever, chills, and a deep sense that something was really wrong. I was so weak I could barely get out of bed. Taking care of our daughter felt impossible. I called my husband at work and told him I needed him to come home. He promised he would. An hour passed. Then 2. He kept texting me, saying he was just finishing up something, and would leave soon. Then he claimed he was stuck in traffic. Then he said he was on his way but had to stop for gas. At this point, my fever was getting worse, and I was struggling to even sit up without feeling dizzy. I told him it was urgent. He reassured me he was almost there. But something felt off. So I texted one of his coworkers, someone I knew he was close with. The response I got sent a chill down my spine. He hasn't left yet. He's still here. I was furious. And terrified. I immediately called my neighbor, a kind older. She came over right away, helped me get dressed, and drove me to the hospital. Turns out, I had a severe asymptomatic urinary tract infection that had turned into a serious kidney infection. My heart rate was dangerously high, and the doctors told me that if I had waited much longer, I could have gone into septic shock. 2 hours later, while I was lying in that hospital bed, shaking from fever and hooked up to an IV, my husband finally decided to show up. I didn't even want to look at him. He tried to explain, saying he didn't realize it was that bad, and that he was just trying to wrap things up at work. But I can't get over the fact that he lied to me, over and over, while I was at home struggling to stay conscious. If my neighbor hadn't been there, I don't know what would have happened to me. I feel so betrayed. If he could ignore me in a life-threatening situation, what does that say about our marriage? About our future? About our daughter's safety if something ever happens again? I don't know what to do. Would you be able to trust your partner after something like this? Comments. Comment 1. Yeah, no. I couldn't do this either. If you had waited for him and gone into septic shock and probably ultimately died, what would he have done then? That could have 100% been prevented if he just came home when you asked. He gives more loyalty to a job that'll just replace him when it's his time over his wife who he chose to love in sickness and health. Comment 2. We're expecting to have our first child in about a month and a half. I, the dad, Notified work of the due date, and I expected that I'd be scheduled on overlapping shifts so if something happens they won't have to scramble to find coverage. The March schedule just came out and in the last week I'm exclusively scheduled at offsites, on my own, so I can't just drop everything and leave. Really? Yeah, right. Guess who has 2 feet and can leave? I'm not missing the birth of my first child for anything and I'm not gonna be anywhere except wherever boss mama wants me to be. Comment 3. I went through something very similar with a now ex. I tried to get past it but I just knew in my heart after that he wasn't reliable and wouldn't prioritize me even in the most dire of circumstances, and that's a hard thing to move past, even without children. Comment 4. Yup. Me too. Now ex. Put everyone one ahead and even doubted my illness. Not a friend or even a person on your team. This is one of those, when they show you who they are, believe them. Update. 4 days later, I'm feeling better and finally back home after a few days in the hospital. My parents came to pick up my daughter and took care of her while I was away. They live 4 hours away, so I hadn't asked for their help earlier. I didn't really get an apology from him. Just a bunch of excuses. He said he didn't think it was that serious, and I should have just gone to the neighbor if it was really that bad. I didn't argue, not because I agree, but because some of the comments I got made me realize some things. People asked if I'm the type to cry wolf, and that's why he didn't come. In 5 years of being together, I've only ever needed him to take me to the hospital once, when I gave birth to our daughter. He wasn't there when I was sick, and if he had come home, he probably wouldn't have done much anyway if it didn't need a hospital. But then someone asked me what I'd do if it was our daughter in my position, and he acted the same way. That hit me hard. And as dramatic as it sounds, I don't want to be with him anymore. I don't think I can ever trust him again. I've made an appointment with a lawyer, but of course, divorce takes time. I'm looking for an apartment, but the housing shortage is a nightmare. Since I live in a rural area, though, there's still hope. I haven't told him yet. He's acting like nothing's wrong, so I'm doing the same. I even saw comments suggesting that he might not have actually been at work, maybe using it as an excuse for something else. So, one night while he was sleeping, I checked his phone. I didn't find proof he wasn't at work, but I did find messages to women, multiple flirty ones. And a Tinder app. These messages have been going on for months. He was also sending TikToks to his friends while I was sick, laughing and joking around with no real concern for me. He told me his boss refused to give him time off. I found no evidence that he even asked for time off or discussed my condition with anyone. I'm starting to suspect he lied because if he really did ask, it would have been illegal for his boss to deny him leave where I live. At this point, I don't feel like confronting him. I just want out. I ignored the red flags before. The small lies, broken promises, and I shouldn't have. I thought he'd be there for me when it mattered most, but I guess I was naive. I never thought anyone could let me down like this. I'm not telling him I'm leaving until I'm ready. Just like he didn't tell me he wasn't coming. Comments. Comment 1. I'm not really surprised you found what you found. I'm so glad you're okay, and I applaud you for realizing you and your daughter deserve better. You're absolutely correct to not mention anything until the plan is fully in place, as you walk out the door. Good luck, everything will be better. Comment 2. Exactly this. OP is handling it smart, no need to give him a heads up. Wishing her and her daughter a smooth transition to a better life. Comment 3. Take screenshots of the app and flirty texts. This is evidence your divorce lawyer can use later. Oopie. Where I am, infidelity doesn't change anything regarding divorce, but I still did it for if he tried to lie to people.